Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Location: Konoha, specific location: Konoha's infirmary in the arena. Hinata's eyes twitched a bit, slowly opening. Her vision was welcome to be blurry, looking at her surroundings: jars, medicines, infection shots, bandages, health masks, pills and equipment that can only be found in hospitals. She was definitely in an infirmary. Like waking up from a bad dream, Hinata tried to remember her past. As much as Hinata could remember, she was in the arena against her opponent known as Kage, who used a shadow jutsu style similar to Shikamaru's Nara clan jutsus. Hinata then started to follow up from that point onwards. The stinging pain, the aching bruises, the electric feel of her muscles and the broken bones all lead to her fortunate win at the end, when she fused her chakra with Ying's so she could win. Hinata didn't remember much still, but she knew she won the fight. She remembered seeing Kage's unconscious body. Hinata also remembered that Anko had announced her as the winner. When Hinata got up, she saw other beds, 3 others actually. One had Hana's unconscious body on it since her defeat by Sakura's hands, another had Kageyaki's body on it since he was defeated by her boyfriend Sasuke's hands, and another had Kage's body on it who was her opponent. Hinata felt a mixture of both slight anger and pride, the anger of the way her opponent Kage had treated her, and pride she fought against him and lived to tell the tale about. Hinata slowly groaned silently, running her head to get a better look at her surroundings as her blurry vision finally started to fade away. She placed her hand on her head and looked around herself. Be careful, you've just overexerted your chakra, that's all. Hinata heard a very familiar voice and looked around herself. She saw Sasuke, smiling at her with a soft smile. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. Sasuke-kun, Hinata slightly exclaimed, as she saw Sasuke looking at her. You did well. I must say I'm very surprised you could beat Kage with the strength you had left. As far as I'm concerned, Kage was Chunin level, he was so strong and durable even I think I would struggle with, but that attack was amazing. Sasuke complimented her, which earned him a blush from Hinata. Did I have visitors? Hinata asked. Neji, me, Dope, Sakura, Tenten, Lee, even Shikamaru and Choji. Ino I think went to thank a sound genin which she believed helped when your attack almost tripped her over. Sasuke replied. Oh, I guess I'll apologize to Ino-chan when she comes here. Hinata said, feeling ashamed and embarrassed due to her feeling careless when she almost knocked her best friend down on the ground with her attack. She didn't mind, she understood it was a mistake. Sasuke informed. Hinata smiled while giggling slightly in happiness, but that happiness soon disappeared. When she asked Sasuke about visitors, she was hoping that her father would have been one of them, so she asked, you didn't mention father, did he come? Sasuke looked at his Hyuga girlfriend, his eyes became regretful, when he regretfully replied, I'm afraid not, he refused to see you. Your sister however wanted but your father forced her to leave you. She came to me and wanted me to tell you in her words that she wishes you to get well soon. I see. Hinata said, sadly, not happy with the fact her father not only refused to visit her but also refused her sister to see her at all. I heard the next match has started. It's most likely your cousin Neji is already fighting an opponent called Saraisu. Sasuke explained. How is he? Hinata asked, with slight concern. Sasuke smiled, then replied, I'm sure he's fine, remember he was rookie of the year before me so I think the only person we might have to worry about is. Suddenly, the doors flung open, revealing Shizune in a doctor's robe rushing in with a stretcher, holding one Neji Hyuga. Hinata's eyes suddenly changed from questioning over Neji to now horror, as she saw Neji's lifeless body full of cuts and blood rushed to get treated and cleaned. Doctors pulled Neji to a nearby bed which was free and immediately began pulling Neji over the bed after a 3, 2, 1 countdown. After that Shizune started ordering the doctors. Get me some bandages and a computer here now. We need to check his status immediately and block all of his open veins. We also need to get some water. He might be dry with the amount he had lost. Also get me a blood pack. Shizune ordered the doctors, as they slowly rushed from one area to the next, bringing hands full of equipment to Shizune to help Neji with his injuries. Neji, Hinata said, trying to absorb everything that was happening before her. Neji, Hinata screamed, as she then got off of her bed and began rushing towards Neji. Hinata hasn't come near him yet, wait till we treat him. Shizune said, with a frantic voice. Sasuke immediately went behind Hinata, pulling his arm over her waist while the other wrapped around her chest, preventing her from going towards Neji any further. Hinata struggled, wanting to see Neji, before giving in to Sasuke. Neji is a critical decision right now, but there's nothing we can do, all we can do is wait for him. Sasuke said, which calmed Hinata down slightly. Even if Sasuke didn't have a view of her face from the back of her head, and even though he didn't feel them, he knew there were tears coming from the corner of her eyes. With the Junins, Guy had his teeth clenched so tight, he felt his own jaw from breaking, and that wasn't the only thing clenched either. He also had his hand clenched in a fist so tight he began bleeding drops of blood onto the ground from them. Neji. Guy growled silently, though the anger was perfectly hinted at in his voice. I'm sorry, Guy, Asuma said, with great regret in his voice. Asuma, Kurenai, and Kakashi all knew how Guy felt about his students. They were like his own children, and seeing one of them injured and hurt like this just makes him so mad he'd wished to speak to Saraisu personally. This is gonna be one heck of a day, Kakashi said, with a slight sigh of annoyance. With Konoha's team. What do you mean you don't know? Naruto said angrily, wanting to know of Neji's state. It's as I said before, Naruto. I don't know, Shikamaru said, with his arms crossed. Neji experienced a large amount of blood loss which almost killed him. Another minute in that arena and Neji would have been dead, so there's no information about him currently. Shikamaru explained. That's it. I had it with those sound genin doing what they can to us. I can't take it. First Sakura-chan, then Sasuke-tem, then Hinata, and now Neji. I'm going to give them what for. Naruto growled, and began to stomp his way to the exit so he could go over to the Sounds team. Immediately, Sakura wrapped her arms around Naruto from his back and his chest and stopped him. Naruto-kun, no, Sakura said. Let go of me. Naruto growled. Please don't, at least do it for me. Sakura begged, which made Naruto stop. Even if you did go to Naruto, it's too late. Shikamaru said. He's right, unfortunately. Lee said. Clench. Naruto clenched his fist tightly and said, those bastards will pay. Naruto. Sakura said quietly. Don't worry. Everyone turned their attention to Tenten, who had spoken. I know Neji Hyuga well, he's stubborn even when he doesn't show it. I'm sure he wouldn't allow himself to die so easily. Not at all, Tenten said. Tenten's right. Neji-kun may be a Hyuga, but he's really strong. I know he wouldn't allow this to happen to himself. Lee said. There may have been a time he would have given in easily, but that was before he met you, Naruto. Tenten said, which meant a lot to Naruto. Plus, it's illegal to fight shinobi from an allied village unless it's in that arena. Shikamaru said. Unfortunately, Shikamaru is right, unless it's in the arena it's downright illegal to fight a shinobi from an allied nation. Tenten agreed. But it's not fair. Neji didn't deserve. Naruto argued but was cut off by Shikamaru. Those are the rules of the Chunin exams, Naruto. Neji knew very well what sort of trouble he would get into if he joined the exams. Shikamaru said, cutting Naruto off from his sentence. And besides, did you, Sakura, or Sasuke know what was gonna happen if you joined the exams? Shikamaru said, which got Naruto thinking. Sakura let her embrace with Naruto go, looking at him from his back, seeing him shaking with anger while clenching his fists at the same time, showing them that he was admitting defeat while at the same time trying to overcome that defeat. Naruto, Sakura said, feeling sorry for her boyfriend. Well, Well, noisy as ever, huh, Naruto? A voice said, which made all of the Konoha genins turn their attention to a certain blonde-haired Suna Kunoichi. T. Tamari. Tenten exclaimed. Look, time no see, brownie. Tamari chuckled, having her fan set on the ground while holding it upright like if it was some sort of a cane to her. It's been a few months and already he's back in action, especially after what happened to the Kyuubi incident. Tamari said while spelling out the Kyuubi's name. Don't worry, I already know of the Kyuubi incident, and I'm sorry. Naruto apologized, feeling bad for what he did to Gaara and his siblings when he attacked them. Don't worry about it. I know the feeling, especially since Gaara is a Jinchuriki himself. I was just following the Casecage's orders. Tamari said, in a slightly irritated voice. Dictionaries. And encyclopedias. Oh yeah, about Gaara, why is he the Casecage? Naruto asked, in confusion. Well, I would explain it to you, but the Casecage himself wanted to speak to you in private in person. Tamari replied. Gaara wants to speak to me. Naruto said, in confusion. Location. Konoha streets, specific location, unknown. Outside the stadium, Hayashi Hyuga was giving his daughter Hanabi to a branch Hyuga guard, where he would guard Hanabi for her to watch the rest of the Chunin exams. But father, do you not want to watch the rest of the matches? Hanabi asked her father. I'm afraid, Hanabi, I must do some serious work that needs my attention, I must do this. Hayashi replied to his daughter. Take good care of her. Hiyashi ordered. Hi Hiyashi-sama, the branch Hyuga Junin shinobi said before he held Hanabi's hand and led her back to the arena, while she waved goodbye to her father. Hayashi walked away from Konoha until he couldn't be seen when he entered a dark alleyway which was empty, with no one in sight. Next, Hiyashi entered hundreds of meters below, a dark room, almost resembling that of the interrogation room Ibiki used for his victims. In front of Hayashi Hyuga, Danzo himself was sitting on a decorated chair with a simple desk like a table, with two Anbu root guards beside him, Danzo being between the two. You came to Hayashi Hyuga? Danzo asked. I indeed did, Hiyashi replied, as he kneeled before Danzo. I came here to you, Danzo, because of an ancestral secret of mine, a secret we Hyugas have been defending more than just our Byakugan. Hiyashi explained. But please tell me, have you ever heard of the two spirits, the two known as Yin and Yang? Hiyashi said. Dictionaries. And encyclopedias. Location. Konoha's infirmary in the stadium. Neji. No. Hinata said, fighting back the tears that were in her eyes. Shizune, please tell us, what happened to Neji Hyuga? Sasuke asked Shizune, who had just removed her gloves from treating Neji's injuries. You two weren't there when it happened. Shizune replied. From the rumors we heard, you two faced 3 sound shinobi during the Forest of Death stage, one of the 3 were Saraisu, wasn't he? Shizune asked. Yes. Sasuke replied. Along with 2 others, Hana and Kage. Saraisu used some sort of a katana-like blade, similar to our chakra blades, which uses chakra as a battery to increase the strength of the cut of the attacks from those blades. This was different. Sasuke explained. His weapon seemed more compact, almost to the point it could fit into his pocket entirely. He used wind chakra nature to make an artificial blade made out of the wind. Sasuke explained. When me sniff, A and Sasuke-kun sniff fought him, A and H his sniff teammates, T they might have been holding back. Hinata said, in between cries. Shizune looked at the young Hyuga girl and couldn't feel sorrow for her to see her cousin in this state. Shizune placed a hand over her right shoulder, and said, it's okay, Neji will be alright. He lost a lot of blood, so he's in a small coma at the moment, but we believe he'll wake up from it in a few hours. He hasn't lost any of his fingers or toes, so that's a good start. He has multiple blade wounds all around his body, but not too serious to leave a permanent scar, but other than that we believe he'll make a full recovery. Shizune explained, which earned a smile from the small Hyuga girl. Neji. Hinata said in sadness. I want to stay by his side, I don't want to leave him if that's okay. Hinata asked. Yes, it's okay now, you can stay, we'll give you room. Shizune replied. With that said and done, Shizune then ordered the doctors to leave, which she then left closing the door behind them, leaving the bandaged Neji on the bed. Neji had bandages all over his body underneath his clothes, the only parts that were an exception were his mouth, eyes, nose, and hair, along with his ears of course. Neji looked like he was sleeping, a well-deserved rest after having almost a life-threatening battle against Saraisu. Hinata then sat at the nearest chair next to Neji. Sasuke then grabbed a chair too and sat next to her. Shouldn't you be with the others? Hinata asked. And leave you here alone? Sasuke replied. Besides, if anything bad happens I'll help you, I just don't trust any of the sound at all, not after what they had done to Neji. Sasuke explained. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. With Naruto. Naruto walked into a balcony that was at the edge of the stadium, pointing towards the outside. He looked around. No one was there, so he proceeded to walk towards the edge where the safety rails were and leaned against them. It was a large balcony too, something for people to walk in and out from the stadium to take a breather or smoke from time to time. Those that didn't follow the rule were usually Asuma, but because of his control over his smoking habits it wasn't that bad, especially if he was in the shinobi audience. Hello, Naruto. Naruto turned his head around away from the rail, after hearing an emotionless voice that called onto him, a voice he knew where it belonged to. Gaara, Naruto exclaimed. Usually it's Kazekage-sama, but for you, I'll accept that name. Gaara said. Hey, long time no see huh? Naruto said. So, you're the Kazekage now. I thought no one in Sand would allow you to become Kazekage, because well. You know. Naruto said, trying not to sound bad in front of Gaara. I understand what you mean, Naruto. True, I wasn't their first choice of Kazekage, but since there weren't any shinobi who were more trustworthy or any who were entitled as successor to Kazekage but me, I was chosen for the position. Gaara explained. Wait, you were a successor? Naruto exclaimed. Yes, chosen by my own father to be the successor to increase protection around me, and also to become the next Kazekage. Truth be told, I wasn't excited to become Kazekage. I despised everything my father was, including his title as a Kazekage. Gaara explained. But since our battle against each other, I have changed anew. I no longer crave the need for blood anymore, but the protection of my siblings and village instead. Gaara added. Hey, so, you have changed huh? Good for you. Naruto cheered. Indeed. Gaara said. There may have been a time I would have spat at the chance to become Kazekage Naruto, but ever since our battle that changed. Gaara explained. Speaking of our battle, I have heard from Hokage-sama herself about your memories returning, memories of the fight. Gaara reminded. Yeah, Naruto said, his cheerful attitude changing to a saddened and regretful one. I know how you feel, but unlike me, you never gave in to Kyuubi's demands. Gaara said, trying to calm down the blonde nine-tailed Jinchuriki. Even if that's the case Gaara, I hurt everybody, I even attacked you. Naruto argued. But that wasn't your own will was it? Gaara said. Quote. Naruto stayed silent. Even I wasn't. That didn't make it okay for everyone. I caused some real trouble for everybody, and I think I may have caused some trouble for you. Naruto said. I heard about it. For Hokage-sama, I've heard what happened with her, even all the marriage contracts and crass she had rejected from the civilian council. Gaara said. But I didn't just bring you here for a casual conversation, I brought you here because of Kyuubi Naruto. Gaara said. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. What? Naruto asked confusingly. I'll tell you. Gaara replied. I'm sure you know the stronger the bond between us Jinchurikis and our demons the more powerful we get, right? Gaara explained. Naruto nodded. It usually takes years, or even a decade before we could possess the limited potential of our power, but the power you've shown when we were fighting Naruto when you tried to leave, is a stage 1 haven't reached yet, and I was making bonds with my demon longer than you did. Gaara said. I don't follow. Naruto said. It means you're stronger than me. Naruto, the strength you displayed, I haven't reached that level. To fuse powers and jutsus with demons and as Jinchurikis as a high stage 1 haven't reached yet. Gaara explained more. Fused powers. Naruto said, confusingly. For us Jinchurikis Naruto, we have the ability to fuse our demon's chakra with any of our jutsus in our arsenal. This allows the damage, speed, and the attack to be increased by many times, depending on the amount of chakra we put into it. Gaara explained. You should also know that since you used a certain specific move. Or have you forgotten Naruto? Gaara asked. What movie are you talking about, Ga? Naruto replied, cutting himself off as memories began to come back to him. Flashback begins. Dark Rasengan. Kyuubi Naruto yelled, thrusting a dark-colored Rasengan down to the ground. Boom. Everything around Kyuubi Naruto upon the impact of his Rasengan was blown up, leaving a large crater. Flashback ends. Since I can see you stopped your sentence, I can only believe that you must have remembered by now. Gaara said, looking at the now regretful eyes of Naruto, which were narrowed down to a sad look while looking down on the ground. I remember now. I made a Rasengan, but this was different from any of the others I made before. This was powerful, more powerful than any other I've made. Naruto said. It was fused with Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto finished. Indeed, most likely what you along with us experienced was nothing short but a taste of the power the Kyuubi has or less. Gaara suggested. Under normal circumstances Naruto, any regular person or Jinchuriki would take years trying to fuse their chakra with their jutsus, but you've achieved such a task right there and there. Gaara said. Then, if it takes years, how did I achieve it? Naruto asked. I think I have a theory on Naruto. Gaara replied. Let me begin. Gaara began. You and I may have experienced the same past, but we dealt with it differently. When someone yelled my name and threatened me or insulted me, I killed them. When someone hurt me, I killed them. When someone even made me tick, I killed them. Gaara explained. I allowed my emotions to run freely from time to time in order to control myself and the Shukaku. Eventually Naruto, because of my methods my control was stronger and stronger. In other words, I allowed myself to release my emotions. Gaara continued. But from what Iruka, your former sensei had told me, you have contained your emotions. Gaara finished. Let me ask you, have you ever laid a hand on the person who hurt you? Have you ever punched someone who hurt you? Have you ever yelled back at someone who insulted you? Gaara asked, giving Naruto questions. No, never. Naruto replied, now understanding where Gaara was going with the conversation. That means all of your emotions have been held back by Naruto. Gaara explained. Think about a dam. A dam is built to keep water contained, but it has a small hole on the wall to allow small gallons of water to leak out, to keep the pressure under control and to prevent the dam from breaking into pieces. Now think of your emotions like the water kept in a dam. Gaara continued. First let's compare dams. My dam has a hole in it, which is the part of me that allowed my emotions to run freely from time to time, so I had control over my emotions and anger because of that. Your hole, however, does not exist, because you kept your emotions contained for so long. It piled up so much that your dam was begging to burst, and you were losing the battle. Gaara finished. I see, because I've kept my emotions in check, all that anger and frustration built up. Naruto said, realizing what Gaara was saying. And so, with one last final push, your dam burst, breaking into pieces and allowing all those years of emotions to fall all together at once. Gaara said, because of the final push, you left yourself vulnerable to the Kyuubi, who must have taken the opportunity to take over your body. Gaara said, may I ask, what was the final push? Gaara asked. It happened the morning of the day when I tried to leave. Naruto replied, sadly. Every morning, My team and I have a meeting on the bridge waiting for Kakashi-sensei. As usual, he's always late when we wait for him on the bridge. Naruto began. Every time we're at that bridge, I always try and ask Sakura-chan out on a date, and she always rejects me, but the last rejection from her. Her last rejection was worse than all the others. Insulting, hurting, heartbreaking. I was so upset at her that I yelled at her. Naruto explained, with a sad tone in his voice. Sorry to hear that, what else? Gaara said. Then Sasuke Tem saw how sad I was, he then offered me a chance to spar with him. Naruto explained even further. We trained, but every time we sparred with one another, he always came on top over me. Naruto explained. He had everything, even if he had lost his clan, that didn't mean he didn't have anybody, that included both Kakashi-sensei and Sakura-chan. Naruto said. I was so jealous of Sasuke Tem, I wanted those things so bad, so I wanted to beat him in a fight one time so I could prove him wrong, but every time we spared he always won over me. Naruto explained. And he almost did it again. Naruto said. But I was so angry, so mad, I couldn't face myself to lose to him again, so I pulled a little bit of the furball's chakra to help me, and I won. Naruto said. But after that, I couldn't push the chakra out of me again, it was leaking out still, so I was forced to knock Sasuke Tem out and leave the village, so I could make sure I could control the chakra. Naruto finished. So that's when your emotions were pushed to the limit. Gaara said. Naruto nodded. Good. I came here so I could tell you about Kyuubi, and what you have to be careful of, Naruto. Gaara said. Because if you don't. Gaara said before giving Naruto a brief pause. Then those you care about, will die. Gaara finished, with a cold tone of warning to Naruto. With Anko. Anko stood at the center of the arena once again, allowing 2 more participants to join the matches. Lee walked out of the door towards the center, towards Anko, while one sound genin by the name of Hao walked out the other side of the arena through another door. But the strangest part happened. Shortly after Hao left, Yo followed him. Wait, 2 sound genins. One member of the audience exclaimed. Wait a minute, that's not fair. Another exclaimed. Isn't that against the rules? Another member of the audience exclaimed. With the Junins. Why is Lee fighting 2 sound genins? Kurenai asked, observing the arena carefully. It must be his youth. Guy replied, with crossed arms and anime-like tears flowing from his eyes. I don't think that's the reason why Guy. Asuma commented. With Konoha's team. Wait a second. Why is Lee going against 2 sound shinobi? Kiba exclaimed. Arf. Akamaru agreed with a bark. I have no idea. Shikamaru said. With the cages. I suppose a certain explanation is in order. The Otokage himself announced it to the village. This was a special match personally requested by me towards you Hokage-sama. A match with the Asakuras and Rock Lee, a match specifically for them. The Otokage announced. With Konoha's team. Asakura. Ino exclaimed. You know them Ino? Tenten asked. Yeah, I do. Ino replied. With Sound's team. Well, they're in for a treat, I mean Yo and Hao might not look much, but they are really strong. Ayato commented. In the arena, Anko had just left, leaving the genins to fight. Dictionaries. And encyclopedias. I wouldn't take us so lightly. Yo said. Shinobi of the Leaf. Hao finished. I don't mind the slightest, as Guy-sensei always told me, there are times when a shinobi will be against multiple odds, 2 will just be good enough for training. Lee said. I'd be careful. Yo said. If I were you, Leaf Shinobi. Hao said. My name is Lee Rock Lee, the next taijutsu master of Konoha to come after Guy-sensei. I will be a great and powerful shinobi, strong enough to protect my friends. Lee said. Really? Yo said. In that case, we'll never hold anything back. Hao said. Ah. Lee charged at full speed towards Yo and Hao, who both had their arms crossed, smiling then closing their eyes only to reopen them again, they both looked at Lee. When Lee pulled his fist back, ready to punch one of the genins, they both dodged, jumping away from each other, splitting apart when Li just threw his punch at them. For some reason, they both suddenly, while midair from the jump, had come together like a magnet towards Li, and kicked him from both sides. Kick. Li gasped, feeling the pain on both his back and stomach. The twins then somehow repelled each other, floating away fast towards the walls of the arena, then coming to each other as they retracted towards one another at full speed, only to punch Li hard on his back and stomach again. After that, they both then started to deliver kicks and punches to Li so fast, failing down the ground felt like an eternity for the green leaf shinobi. The audience gasped, shocked at the twins' strength and power. It was unbelievable there. Li was losing in a taijutsu battle. Ah! Boom! Li yelled, before crashing head first down the ground. He got up, rubbing his head from a headache he had just received from crashing, and looked at the twins who both did a series of hand signs. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. Wind style. Freezing point. Yo said, as he then blew from his mouth a cold breath attack towards Li. Water style. Water lance. Hao said, as he then spat a fountain of water from his mouth towards the air. Yo's freezing breath attack was over Li's head, where then the water had come up then gone down into the freezing mist, turning into solid ice lances heading straight towards Li. Li gasped. Boom. Crash. 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 Luckily for Li, he reacted just fast enough before the lances came crashing down over his head. Li had jumped a distance away from both Yo and Hao, before landing on his feet skidding far away from them. Wah, what was that? Li said while breathing heavily. It's almost like they planned the whole attack immediately. Does that mean they have intelligence that rivals the Naris? Li said, trying to figure out what Yo and Hao were doing. Maybe we, Yo said, should explain. Hao said. You see, we Asakuras are similar to the Yakumanas, we have a bloodline limit ourselves. Yo began the explanation. But we wouldn't call it much of a bloodline though. You see, our bloodline limit only allows us to read minds. Hao continued. But not just any minds, we are limited to how many minds we can read. Yo said. And those minds would be nobody else but ours. Hao said. Our family has a special trait, and it is that every time a new generation of the Asakuras are born. You said. All of the next generations of the Asakuras are born as twins. In fact, in terms of numbers, we outnumber the Hyuga clan, and they have a very similar setup like ours. Hao said. So, while our bloodline limit may not be useful on a one-on-one fight, it is very useful on a two-on-one fight. Yo said. As brothers, we have been training with each other for years and years now, so in other words, we act as a single person when the two of us combine our powers into one, Hao said. That's why you're fighting the both of us. Yo said. Which means there's no chance a leaf shinobi like you can win against our, Hao said. Brotherly love. Both Hao and Yo shouted at the same time, while they both posed in a dab pose while kneeling down on the ground looking perfectly symmetrical. Then how did you repel and attract each other? Lee asked. Oh, that, Yo replied. That was our own special style jutsu, one we like to call, Hao explained. Brotherly love, Yo and Hao yelled, as they did their pose one more time. With Konoha's team, guess I should have seen this coming. Lee always has a knack of attracting the attention of the weird guys. Tenten sighed, while the others, with the exception of Shino of course, were wide-eyed at Lee's opponents. With the Junins, oh Lee sniff, you found such great opponents. I'm proud of you, Guy said, as anime-like tears started to fall from his eyes like waterfalls, while holding a tissue. You can't seriously be proud of your student just because he was chosen to fight some opponents, Guy. Kurenai said, giving Guy a certain look to express how awkward it must have looked. Dictionaries and encyclopedias in the arena. Why your brotherhood has moved me to tears sniff. Lee exclaimed while holding his forearm against his eyes, wiping the tears from his eyes. This one's too crazy to take literally. Yo said. I know right, how about we finish him off, and make this a quick match, to Yuya-san's getting anxious that she hasn't fought a single opponent in ages. Hao said. Lee rubbed the remaining tears from his eyes and looked at Yo and Hao with eyes filled with burning determination. Literally, they were on fire. In that case, I shall too end this match with my fiery burning determination mixed with my great youth. Lee yelled. Lee then undid his bandages a bit, leaving them hanging until he was prepared to use his special attack. With one attack like this I shall end the match and claim victory. Lee yelled, as he then threw his long bandages like whips towards Yo and Hao, which they got tied up in. What the? Yo exclaimed. These are strong. Hao exclaimed. Ah! Lee yelled, as he then crouched on the ground with red-like chakra leaking out of his body, charging his feet so much he could send himself flying in the air. Ah! Lee yelled, as he jumped so high in the air with Yo and Hao following him since they were tied up in his bandages. Time for my ultimate move. Lee yelled, as he flew just above the Hokage monument level, diving head first towards the arena spinning around. Leaf whirlwind, Lee yelled, spinning faster and faster by every second. In that case, Yo said, let us show you our own moves. Hao said. Without warning, the twins used their own magnetic abilities to attract each other, then when they were close to Lee, they then repelled each other once they were close enough, changing their sides immediately, which then wrapped Lee up himself by his own bandages. After that, they then twisted themselves to the point at which they undid their bindings, and then grabbed the ends and pulled themselves towards Lee, which they then caught him off guard. Double twin kick. Kick. They both kicked Lee on both of his cheeks, which they then put weight on, which caused some major damage to his head when he crashed down towards the ground. Boom. Dust then covered the arena. Time skip. A few minutes later. And the winners are you and Hao Asakurs. Anko announced, while the medic picked Lee up on a stretcher, pulling him towards the infirmary. With Konoha's team, I knew something like this would happen, Tenten said, sighing at her unfortunate teammate. With the Junins. Oh, Lee sniff, you tried your best. Guy cried, while a waterfall of tears was falling onto someone's head. Guy, you're crying on someone. Asuma said. Location. Konoha, specific location, stadium. Hey guys, I'm back from Gaara. What happened? Naruto asked. Well, long story short, Lee was beaten in a taijutsu battle. Shikamaru replied. Oh, what? Naruto exclaimed, shock written all over his eyes. Yep, Lee lost in a taijutsu match. Shikamaru repeated himself a second time. By the way, Naruto, what were you and Gaara discussing about anyway? Shikamaru asked. Well, it was about furball. Naruto replied, with a guilty and regretful tone in his voice. The Kyuubi huh? Tenten said. Naruto nodded. You guys remember right, when I used that dark Rasengan? Naruto asked. Yeah, Shikamaru replied. It blew everything in sight up. Heck, We were lucky that Gaara was around and used his sand to make a dome to protect us from the blast, otherwise we would have been blown away too. Shikamaru explained. He said it was a demon chakra fusion. I don't know the details, but somehow I fused my Rasengan with the Furball's chakra. Naruto explained. I'm no Jinchuriki, but I've heard from Dad that a fusion of chakra like that would have been a difficult process for anyone as young as we are. Also, he said it would take years to bond with the demon inside the Jinchuriki to perform something like that. Shikamaru said. And that's what Gaara told me. Naruto said. He said I did that, but I don't know how I did. Also, he said that the power of that attack was only a small taste or less of the Furball's true power. Naruto said. Everyone was shocked because of this wide eye. The power they'd witnessed with the Kyuubi when he took over Naruto's body would have meant the strength they had to endure was only a small taste of what the Kyuubi could truly do. Even the strength of their Junin sensei, who are known as the Junin elite, combined with the strength of 2 of the 3 legendary Sannin could not fare much against that strength. Although, in argument case they were holding back, since they wanted to retrieve Naruto rather than kill him, so they didn't put 100% in that fight, but if they did it wouldn't have mattered anyway, the end result would have been the same. Hearing this from Naruto did raise some concerns. Shikamaru was now concerned over Naruto when now considering the Kyuubi inside of him. If Naruto was to blow a fuse again it wouldn't be good. Well, as much as I can remember, there are supposed to be 7 matches, right? Shikamaru said. Counting Lee's there have been 5 so far. The next might either be yours, or Ino's. Shikamaru said. Which reminds me, I wonder did Ino train? Naruto asked. What's that supposed to mean? Ino replied, with a growl. Well, it's just that. You know the sound has some really powerful shinobi and last Chunin exams you and Sakura-chan were equal in terms of strength, and she barely won her match against Hana. Naruto explained. He has a point, Ino. These sound genins are a lot stronger than the lot that came last time. In fact, Neji lost to one of them. In seconds, Neji, our Neji, had lost, the former rookie of the year. Shikamaru said. And it was scheduled for you to fight this Tayuya. I don't know much about her. In fact, I don't know if we had ever seen her face. She had seemed to be silent all this time. Shikamaru said. You know, I didn't realize it at first, but you're right. Tenten agreed, as she looked across the arena to take a good look at Tayuya's smile. She hasn't said one word since the 3rd phase of the Chunin exams began. Tenten said. And her chakra. She seems to be suppressing it. Tenten said. Of course, she's suppressing her chakra, it's not her turn yet. Choji said. I don't know, I never sensed any chakra coming from her at all. Naruto said. To be honest, I think she's hiding her chakra on purpose. Naruto said. True. Even if she's not fighting, you think we would sense some chakra from her like we do with the rest of the shinobi and civilians. Kiba agreed. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. You heard what Kageyaki said to Sasuke in their match, right? The training they do is classified, on top of that they seem to hide their true power away from us. Shikamaru suggested. All I can say is that maybe she's hiding something from us, and she doesn't want us to know about it until her match with Ino. Shikamaru said. I wonder, when is Ino fighting anyway? Naruto asked. Don't know. Shikamaru replied. For the next match we have Ino versus Tayuya. Tsunade just then after Naruto and Shikamaru finished talking to each other, had announced the next matchup. Just in time. Shikamaru commented. I guess I'm next, huh? Ino said, as she started to walk towards the doors that would lead her to a hallway to the stadium's arena itself. Careful, Ino. Sakura said. Don't worry about it. Ino said. With Sound's team. You haven't spoken all this time yet, I guess you must have been saving it for some speech or something. Saraisu said, with his arms crossed as he looked next to him at Tayuya, who simply smiled. I was watching the matches carefully. I guess I now know why Orochimaru-sama wants Sasuke, he sure is powerful. Tayuya said. Might wanna be careful where you say that, you do realize we are in enemy territory, and that people can hear us. Saraisu said, as he leaned close to her ear and whispered, he words out of his mouth to avoid anyone eavesdropping on him. I'm careful, Tayuya said playfully. Hey Tayuya, Ayato said. Tayuya looked at him. Please, go easy on her. Ayato said, his voice sounding very concerned over Ino. Tayuya simply smiled in response, before saying, what's wrong Ayato, don't want me to mess up your girlfriend. Just please be easy on her. Ayato begged, sounding more concerned over Ino. Whatever. Tayuya said, slightly annoyed before leaving for the arena. You know, forging bonds with the enemy is forbidden, you know. Saraisu said. I know. Ayato said. I personally don't care whether you make bonds with the enemy or not, and neither does the Otokage-sama. But if you do anything that could mess up the plan, then you know what he might do to you. Saraisu said, his voice acting seriously, glaring at Ayato with a serious look in his eyes. Ayato didn't respond to Saraisu at all after that speech, he just simply leaned forward and watched the arena, as the Yakamana Kunoichi walked out of the stadium's doors and into the arena. With the cages. Shortly after Naruto had returned to his spot, Gaara did the same and sat next to Tsunade with the cage hat on his head. Interesting how this Tayuya hasn't revealed her face to the audience yet. Tsunade said. Tayuya can get a little nervous. You see, she doesn't really like the attention, so she keeps herself under her cloak. The Otokage said, but as a joke. I can't really see her fighting with a cloak on. It's not illegal to have a cloak in the Chunin exams, but it doesn't fit the fighting needs. A cloak can block your view, or even become a burden to the point it could snag on anything. Gaara suggested. Most likely she could remove her cloak from her body anytime in this match. Gaara said. True. I must confess I was lying when she was shy. The Otokage apologized. She likes to make an entrance with her appearance when she's on stage. The Otokage commented. For some reason Tsunade started to believe that it may be a bad choice to have Ino fight Tayuya. Since Ino's and Tayuya's matchup was random and not planned, to fill in the missing gaps, she started to see something strange in Tayuya, something a little sinister. In the arena, shortly after Anko had left both Ino and Tayuya, the Yakamana looked at the sound Kunoichi with some rather concerned eyes that were scanning her opponent and her features every way to be careful of her. We should introduce ourselves before fighting. Tayuya said. My name is Tayuya. Tayuya introduced. Ino Yakamana. Ino introduced. Tayuya. Ino said, wanting to get the answer of Tayuya's last name. Just Tayuya, I have no last name or a middle name. Tayuya said. Strang, I thought you had a last name. Ino said. Why are you hiding underneath that cloak? Ino asked. I'm just a little skin sensitive to the sun. Tayuya replied with a joke. But I am getting a little warm here, let me fix that. Tayuya said, as she grabbed a handful of her cloak and pulled it right off of her body. Ino got a good sight of Tayuya, wearing what appeared to be a t-shirt kimono with almost the exact same design as patterns like Orochimaru's, only this was gray. She wore a black hat with bandages along with bicycle shorts. Tayuya also had some long red hair and dark eyes filled with some energy, ready for the fight. So, you are a kunoichi. Ino said mockingly. You really thought I was a boy? Tayuya responded to Ino with a joke. That would make sense, I mean with those looks who knows, you must be desperate for a boyfriend. Ino said mockingly. Who needs boyfriends when you have all of this strength? Tayuya said. With the cages. If I remember correctly, she was one of the sound shinobi who made that barrier to protect Orochimaru and third Hokage-sama's fight. Yugao thought. With the Junins. It's her guy. Kakashi whispered. I know, she was here last time when the invasion started. Guy responded. In the arena. I thought you would be scared of me. Tayuya said. Why would I be? I have been training too. Ino said, as she slowly took out a kunai from her kunai holster. But have you been training like hell like I did? Tayuya smirked. FWRRP. Ino's eyes went wide when her opponent suddenly flashed away out of nowhere. She suddenly felt a presence when Tayuya appeared behind her, with a kunai in her hand. Twink. Both Ino's and Tayuya's kunai clashed, both holding them tightly. Ino's arms were shaking as she held her kunai with both hands, desperately trying to make sure Tayuya doesn't strike her with her kunai. What surprised Ino a lot was the fact that Tayuya was only holding her kunai with one hand and was smirking at her, showing that she was producing this much force with ease. Punch. Because Tayuya only had one hand on the kunai, she was free with one hand, which she used to punch Ino in the gut, which forced the yakamana to bend downwards on her stomach, losing the force she had on her kunai. Ino immediately dropped to the ground once she felt Tayuya's kunai free from her own, just barely missing the kunai's stroke, cutting off small pieces of her hair. Ino rolled to the right side of her body, getting up quickly, positioning her kunai. Ino saw Tayuya looking at her with cocky eyes, before launching herself towards Ino at incredible speed. Ino gasped, before jumping upwards high in the sky, just avoiding. Boom! A super-powered chakra-infused punch from Tayuya, which shattered the ground she once stood on into pieces. Tayuya jumped high as well, but she jumped so fast she caught up with Ino, delivering a powerful kick to the yakamana at a downward angle, which not only sent her back to the ground, but towards the walls of the arena as well. Boom! Ino crashed to the wall. Ino coughed, swatting away all of the dust and debris while struggling to get back up on her feet after the attack she just took in, holding her stomach and rib cage area tightly while having to cough on her wrist. She was full of dirt and a few bruises too. Ino looked at her wrist when she felt something wet fall on it when she coughed. It was blood, and she checked the corner of her mouth and found some more drops of blood. Tayuya landed on the ground with ease, looking at the yakamana while chuckling to her. Wah! What's so funny? Ino demanded. Just that a minute ago you were confident and all, so far you were talking pretty good. Tayuya replied. But you know what? You aren't that much of a shinobi. Tayuya said. What? Ino exclaimed with a sad expression on her face. You heard, you are a sad excuse of a shinobi. Tayuya said with a voice filled with slight laughter. I mean, I fought genins in sound before, I spared with them, and let me tell you this much, girly, they were a lot tougher than you were. In fact, now that I think of it, that Sakura girl Hana fought looked a lot stronger than you are. When I look at the other Konoha genins, I can tell they are powerful, more powerful than you are. I wonder why, Tayuya said. Maybe because of, your Sasuke-kun. Tayuya said, sarcastically. I heard he has his own fangirl club, and the leader of that club was you and that other girl. To be honest with you, before Kin was somehow killed, I heard from a call from her about her time in the Chunin exams, the night before she was killed by your friend, that your friend and you worked harder on your looks than your skills as a shinobi. It's no wonder why you failed the last Chunin exams. Tayuya said. She's right. As much as I hate to admit it, I am lacking in strength. All those times me and Sakura had been after Sasuke and improving our looks had taken a toll on our training. Still, I won't lose this fight to a girl like her. Ino thought angrily. Listen you. I am a Yakamana. Daughter of Inoichi Yakamana. I'm not just gonna let you tarnish my name like that. Ino yelled, pointing a finger at Tayuya in declaration. And I should be scared of you, why? Tayuya said, with a smirk on her face. Because of this. Ino threw two kunais at Tayuya, who just stood there with her hands against her hips, watching as the kunais were split apart heading towards her. Seriously, is she even trying? Tayuya thought, as the two kunais were passing right by her. One kunai to her right and the other to her left, both 1 meter apart from her, which was why she never made the effort to dodge either of them. But something caught Tayuya's eye, when she saw something flashing and silver coming right towards her, which made her realize she had fallen into a trap. Thwack! Thwack! Both kunais were stuck to a wall, with Tayuya now wrapped in shinobi wiring pinned against the wall. I'll admit, Maybe I underestimated that attack for a bit. Tayuya admitted. But all this will do is prolong the inevitable. Between you and me, you should know that I am stronger than you. Tayuya said. Which is why I'm using this jutsu. Ino said, as she positioned herself lower, kneeling almost, while making a strange square-like sign with her hands, pointing them towards Tayuya. This is the famous Yakumana jutsu. I don't think I need to explain what this will do to you. Ino said, with a smirk on her face. It can't be. That's one of the great clans of Konoha's iconic jutsu, the Tayuya said. Exactly. Ino said with a smile on her face. I need to get out of here, before she uses that jutsu against me. Tayuya said, struggling in the wires trying to free herself. Too late, girl. Ino said. Mind transfer jutsu. Ino yelled, as she closed her eyes, waiting for her jutsu to finish. However, Ino exclaimed, now realizing her jutsu never reached Tayuya. Opening her eyes and looking where Tayuya was, she saw that her opponent was gone, nothing but the wires and kunais remained at the wall. You know, it's kinda pathetic that it took me seconds to get out of that trap. Ino turned her eyes to the corner, looking behind her as Tayuya was behind Ino, looking at her with a smirk on her face. Punch. Tayuya punched Ino so hard she fell down to the ground. You know, I heard the Yakumana clan is supposed to be strong and powerful even without their secret arts and their jutsus. So why are you so pathetically weak? Tayuya laughed, before grabbing Ino's hair and pulling it hard, lifting her head up with it. Ino groaned. This isn't considered breaking the rules or anything, I mean you are still in the match, Yakumana. Tayuya said, smiling at her opponent. Tayuya felt a rather darkish pressure coming from the audience, while they failed to notice Tayuya hadn't, looking at the stage with the rest of the sound genins to see Ayato, his hair covering his eyes while giving a stern look on his mouth. Oh please, let me have my fun, Kage and Saraisu had theirs. Tayuya chuckled, before. Kick. Tayuya kicked Ino at the center of her back. Ino yelled in pain. Punch. Kick. Punch. Kick. Punch. Punch. Kick. Punch. Kick. Punch. 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 Some members of the audience gasped while others closed their eyes at the sight of Ino being beaten into a pulp by Tayuya, who seemed to be enjoying herself. With Konoha's team. That bastard. Naruto growled, climbing over the rails before Sakura hugged him from the back, stopping him. Just leave it to Naruto. Shikamaru said. Shikamaru. What are you talking about? Ino may be a jerk sometimes, but she doesn't deserve this one. She's your teammate, how can you say that? Naruto growled. And you don't think I don't want to save her? Shikamaru growled at Naruto, giving an angered look that was directed at Tayuya, but showing Naruto the look on his eyes. Ino. Choji said in horror, watching his friend and teammate getting beaten. With Sound's team. Looks like Tayuya is having fun, huh? Saraisu said, looking at Ayato, only not getting any response from his friend, and instead a small aura of what appeared to be shadow-like flames from some parts of his body. They may have been small, so it was lucky that no one saw Ayato with them. Don't be stupid, the Otokage-sama will kill us if you try to stop Tayuya. Saraisu said, with slight fear in his voice, stopping Ayato from doing what he could do. In the arena. Stop please. Ino yelled, her arm grabbed by Tayuya, who placed a foot over her shoulder, pushing down while pulling her arm at the same time. Like I would. It's fun and entertaining. Why should I stop? Tayuya said, kicking Ino on the back of the head. There hasn't been one person killed in this arena, how about we? Tayuya could only say so much before. Boom. An explosion appeared just next to Tayuya, who had fear in her eyes. Tayuya looked behind her to see a large crater. Looking at the smoking crater, she turned her eyes to the one person who could create such an explosion from a distance, and that person was Ayato. What are you doing? Tayuya said, with shock in her voice. With the cages. Where did that explosion come from? A shocked Tsunade said. You mean that wasn't the product of the Yakumana? Gaara said. Ayato. What are you doing? The Otokage thought in anger, growling in his thoughts against Ayato. With Sound's team. Ayato, what are you doing? You do realize you can't use that jutsu on the arena, otherwise they'll remove you for interfering. Why did you do that? Saraisu growled in a whisper at Ayato, demanding answers from his friend but only received silence. In the arena. Are you seriously defending this girl? She's a Konoha kunoichi. Tayuya said in a whisper. Ino grunted in pain, before collapsing on the ground hard when she tried to push herself up. Enko rushed over to Ino's body and immediately checked for her pulse. Luckily, she had her pulse still but seemed to have suffered great injury. She's alive, but not. Enko said in worry. Hey, get some medics here. We got another one. Hurry up and get her. Enko yelled, getting the medic's attention. Enko then turned her attention to Tayuya, expecting to see a face full of victory, however she got something else instead. Fear. Enko saw fear in Tayuya's eyes. For someone who just won her match with ease, you'd expect a comment, or at least praising herself, but not this. Enko thought. Winner of the match, Tayuya. Enko announced. Location. Konoha, specific location, Stadium Sound's temporary locker room. Bang. Ayato found himself smacked against a locker, being held tightly on the shoulder by the Otokage himself, who looked at the genin with angry eyes. The area was clear, no one in sight to see or hear this conversation. What the hell were you doing? The Otokage demanded. I was just anxious for my match. Ayato replied in an attempt to lie his way through the Otokage, hoping he wouldn't see through it, but he did. Has your attention with the Yakumana driven all of your thoughts from the mission? Don't forget we're doing this for both Orochimaru-sama and the Sound Village. The Otokage reminded angrily. You just jeopardized our operations when you used that jutsu on the arena. The Otokage said. Behind the Otokage, Saraisu, Tayuya, along with Hao and Yo were watching. Saraisu had his eyes closed and his arms crossed, but was slightly sweating. In fear from the Otokage, Tayuya had a terrified look on her face while Hao and Yo were hugging each other for comfort from being afraid of the angry Otokage. Tayuya was taking too long. Ayato groaned in another attempt to defend himself. You realize, even with the rank of a Kage, I cannot break the sacred laws of the Chunin exams. You're just lucky no one noticed the attack you just pulled, but that means you can't use it in your next match, otherwise everyone will know you broke a rule and interrupted a fight, meaning your opponent will win by default. The Otokage explained. Drop. He dropped Ayato down on the ground while he was holding his shoulder tightly due to the stinging pain inside of him. The matches were arranged specifically so that you would go against your opponent as the last round for the Chunin exams. That needs to be done that way for the plan to take action. Gaara, as I remember, had failed the last invasion because of his own emotions, though with Orochimaru's identity as the Kage being revealed, no one could punish Gaara for that. The Otokage explained. You on the other hand can be punished either way, so let go whatever feelings you have of the Yakumana and make sure the invasion is a success. The Otokage explained. If you don't, you'll suffer for it. The Otokage threatened. Then the Otokage left, leaving behind a badly bruised Ayato who was using his own chakra to heal himself from the injuries. Hopefully you did learn a lesson, Ayato. It's not exactly every day someone gets on the Otokage-sama's bad side and lives to tell the tale, you know. Saraisu said, helping Ayato up from the ground, who was struggling to get on his 2 feet. I groans wouldn't exactly call it luck. Ayato said, groaning in pain. I would. Saraisu said. And here I thought the Yakumana was only a crush, but no, it's not. Saraisu said. Looks like the time you spent with her must have given you some ideas. Saraisu said. Ayato stayed silent. Ayato. You've been my friend for years and years, you told me about your grudge against Konoha for what they did to you. Saraisu reminded. I'll never forgive them. Ayato said, coldly. You told me the true reason you came to this village to aid in our plan so was to get the revenge you wanted, so you could end Konoha's lust for blood once and for all. Are you really gonna abandon all those years of training, hard work, and motivation, all for one girl? Saraisu said, which made Ayato silent, trying to find the answers for Saraisu. Ayato. Hao and Yo said quietly. The Otokage was still walking near the exit and back to the cage booth, but he stopped, not turning his back again. He spoke, saying, "Tayuya, a minute of your time please." Tayuya walked towards the Otokage. "I have an important assignment for you." The Otokage informed. An assignment? Where? Tayuya asked. "Right here, in the stadium." The Otokage replied. "It's almost time." The Otokage said. "How, Yo?" Tayuya gasped. Ayato and Saraisu just looked at the Otokage with a serious expression on their faces. "Your match is coming next, Ayato. If you still hold that grudge against Konoha for what they did to you, then you'll do exactly as the plan is meant to." The Otokage said, before he re-explained the plan to the Genins. Location. Infirmary. Where am I? One unconscious Ino Yakamana thought to herself, while slowly getting up from her bed with a blurry vision. Ino held her head tightly, trying to refocus her eyes so she could get a clearer glance of her surroundings. Ino had eventually found out she was in Konoha's stadium's infirmary. Ino touched her wounds, but they were gone, courtesy of Tsunade Senju's healing jutsu, along with the aid of Shizune herself as well. "Ino-chan, it's so good to see you're awake." Ino recognized that shy voice from anyone, and that was her friend Hinata, who was sitting on a chair next to Ino's bed. "Hinata!" Ino exclaimed. She looked behind Hinata to see a smirking Sasuke with his arms crossed. "Sasuke!" Ino exclaimed. "If you're wondering, you were here for 10 minutes. Sasuke informed. "Oh, okay," Ino said. "I can't believe I lost my match that easily." Ino said, feeling embarrassed. Ino looked at both Sasuke and Hinata, before turning her sights behind Hinata to the brutally beaten Neji. "He hasn't woken up yet, has he?" Ino asked. Hinata had a sad face, and replied, "No. He hasn't. We've been waiting ever since he has been brought here, but he showed no signs so far for waking up." Sasuke explained. "So, I guess it's worse than we imagined, huh?" Ino said, feeling sorry for Hinata. With the cages. The Otokage just walked through the doors into the cage booth, where he then took his seat next to Tsunade. "I can see you've returned from that small errand you had to run," Tsunade said, looking at the Otokage from the corner of her eyes. "A small mishap. Apparently my shinobi had a fight in sound. The council called me for a suitable punishment until I arrive back. For now they have been detained and are waiting for my return. I do hope it wasn't any inconvenience for you, Tsunade-sama," the Otokage said. "Of course not," Tsunade said. "However, I must say I wasn't expecting an explosion from your kunoichi," Tsunade said. "Well, that was Tayuya's new jutsu, but she hasn't had complete control over it yet, not at least anyway." The Otokage lied. "Tayuya, I had recently dispatched her back to Sound Village." The Otokage lied. "Sound. The Chunin exams aren't over yet," Tsunade said out of confusion. "Maybe not, but threats never rest, do they?" The Otokage spoke back, making Tsunade agree. "Agreed." Tsunade agreed. Flashback begins. "What?" Tayuya asked the Otokage in surprise. "Orochimaru-sama still hasn't given up on his former plans yet," the Otokage replied. "In fact, I believe he will join our cause. His lust for vengeance is too great for him to avoid. You are to deliver a message in Orochimaru-sama's name to him," the Otokage explained. "If he refuses," Tayuya asked, "we'll have to take him by force," the Otokage replied. Flashback ends. Hopefully Tayuya's mission will become a success, the Otokage thought, looking at the arena's grounds, spectating it. With Tayuya. Deep below the stadium, Tayuya was walking down the empty hallways of the stadium, walking down the small hallway fit for 2 people at a time. She was making her way towards her target, the person she's meant to deliver the message to. As she walked towards her target's location, she couldn't help but remember what her cage had told her what to do. "All I have to do is offer him a position in Sound, and he'll join." He has to join. I mean, I heard of his lust for vengeance, so he has no choice but to join us. I hope. Tayuya thought, making her way to a room she was heading towards. No one has seen him since his match, so it's most likely he'll be in this room. Tayuya thought. Come and join us, Sasuke. Tayuya thought, just as she had reached the infirmary's door, looking through the glass window and towards Sasuke's face. In the arena, the next match is a fight between. Tsunade announced, getting ready to announce the final fight of the match. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and Ayato Usagi Kase. Tsunade announced. With the crowd. One member of the crowd exclaimed. They're not actually gonna let somebody like him fight, right? One member said. Honestly, I hope they do, then the Sound Genin can finish him off once and for all. Another member of the crowd said. With Konoha's team, Naruto was slumping over a rail, depressed over the crowd's reaction over Naruto's match. Now, I'm sure they're gonna change their minds on you, Naruto, at some point. They can't stay mad at you for the Kyuubi attack for several years, right? Tenten said, while waving her hands at Naruto with a gesture trying to calm him down. I don't know, I mean Konoha hasn't forgotten what the Kyuubi did 13 years ago, so I doubt they'll forget sooner. Shikamaru commented, making Naruto depressed even more. Shikamaru. Tenten growled at Nara for his comment. Shikamaru immediately swallowed, realizing what he had just said to Naruto. Sweat dropping, Shikamaru said, I mean look. Haha, at least we don't see that, and maybe future generations won't either, Naruto. Naruto slowly got up, still depressed, before saying, you're probably right, but do they have to do it now of all times? But you're right on that other thing. At least you guys don't see me as a demon as the rest of the village does. I will make them acknowledge me as someone else, no matter what. Naruto declared, now fully up and energetic, ready for battle, while his friends and his girlfriend smiled for the words he used. In the arena, Ayato slowly walked towards the center, where Anko was, while Naruto did the same. Both genins made a silent walk, their blood pumping, and their hearts beating. This was it. Finally. Naruto was finally here at the third phase of the Chunin exams once again. This time he was gonna win, and become Chunin. Making a second step forward to becoming Hokage. And having everyone's acknowledgement. The chocolate brown eyes of Ayato's met the cerulean blue eyes of Naruto, both genins looking at each other eye to eye, filled with determination and strength. Ready to fight as soon as the signal was made. You two know the rules, right? Anko asked. Yes. Ayato and Naruto replied. You're allowed to kill each other if one of you were not to surrender or knocked out of consciousness. When I feel like the fight is too much, or when your opponent is already off the verge of fighting, then I'll stop the match and declare the winner. Any outside interruptions or aid will result in an instant disqualification. Anko explained. Since I told the rules, there is only one thing left for me to do, fight. With that said, Anko walked away from the two genins, who still were locking eyes at each other. So, you're the nine-tailed Jinchuriki I heard so much about. Ayato said. I heard stories about how the nine-tailed Jinchuriki single-handedly defeated the Shukaku, the one-tailed beast, folioing in the plans of Orochimaru. I also heard you fought the one called Haku, Zabazaz, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, companion. Then I heard the tale of how liberated an entire village from the clutches of a corrupt crime boss known as Gato. They even named the bridge after you, though with the last name revealed they might have to change the name a bit. Ayato said. You know something, Naruto said. When we first met it was in the village streets, we met before the Chunin exams began. Naruto said. Indeed, we did. Ayato said. I sensed something strange. At first, I thought it was the furball's chakra, but it wasn't something. I sense something rather dark in you. And I don't mean dark as in personality, I mean dark as in power. Naruto said, with slight confusion in his voice. Well, how about you come to get me and find out? Ayato said. Then I will do it. Naruto said. Naruto charged towards Ayato, which Ayato responded by crossing his forearms together in a defensive position, forming an X with his arms. Come and get me, Ayato said. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto yelled, as 5 other Narutos appeared around him, running to circle Ayato preparing to attack. Ayato shifted his eyes towards each of the Naruto clones, observing them as they stood surrounding him with a smug smirk on their faces. With Konoha's team, with that many clones, my best guess is that Naruto is trying to surround his opponent, so he'll get struck by all sides. Shikamaru said. With Sound's team, smart move, you're surrounding Ayato, so he won't be able to protect himself from all sides, clever. But not clever enough, Saraisu said. In the arena, now you'll have to fight all of us. One of the clones said. Oh please, Ayato said. I spar with Hao and Yo plenty of times and I can tell you this much, the strength and power they display is a lot more than simple clones can have. Ayato said, before doing a series of hand signs. Ayato then held his right arm downright, while holding his wrist with his left hand tightly. Be careful, he's forming a Chidori, one of the clones warned. Oh, I can assure you this is a lot more powerful than any old Chidori. Ayato said, while the palm of his hand started to turn dark. The palm first became dark, then it started to rise, flowing like fire on his palm. It was chakra, but black chakra. What the? The real Naruto said in confusion, trying to get a hold of what was going on. Dark palm, Ayato yelled, as the Naruto clones charged at him. Ayato placed his palm on the ground which then, boom, all the Naruto clones flew away, disappearing into thin air in clouds of dust as they crashed to nearby debris and the walls. With Konoha's team, what? I thought he was forming a Chidori. Does Sasuke have a similar stance? Sakura exclaimed, surprised by Ayato's work. Shikamaru, you said something to us earlier about your clan once being different before it split into 2 clans, you think he's Kage's cousin or something? Choji asked, not even biting his chips once seeing Ayato's attack. I wish I could say Choji, but this doesn't look like any of the jutsus either clan uses. Shikamaru replied, wide-eyed at Ayato's attack. With Sound's team. Wow. Yo and Hao said, eyeing Ayato's attack. I forgot, you two only recently became genin and you hardly saw Ayato fight. By the end of the day, it's an exploding move Ayato has, it's his signature move. Saraisu explained. In the arena. Damn, that was close. Naruto said, rubbing the dirt from his face. If I had been close to him when he was using that move, I would have been more than just blown away, I would have been killed. Naruto said. I hardly doubt this move would have killed you. Ayato said after hearing what Naruto said. I powered this move to the point it would only hurt you, not kill you. Ayato said. That's not right, you made that jutsu but not enough to kill me. Naruto complained. What's wrong with that? I thought if I attacked with a lesser form of my jutsu then you won't be killed, isn't that a good thing? Ayato asked. Yeah, Naruto replied. But that means you're holding back. I don't want to fight anybody unless they're willing to give it their all. Naruto said. In that case, clap. Ayato clapped his hands together. How about I give you a taste of my family secret? As you may know, you can only perform a jutsu unless you follow the specific sequences of signs throughout to perform the jutsu. If you don't, you can't perform any jutsu at all. But for my clan, Ayato said, as he released his hands from one another, then placed them on the ground. Earth style. Earth spikes. Ayato yelled, as the ground around him began to move, shooting straight up into 5 pillars, before forming spikes at the top of those pillars which then acted as tentacles heading straight towards Naruto. What the? Boom. Naruto said, as he then jumped up, dodging a spike that landed where he once stood. Did he just perform an earth-style jutsu without doing any of the hand signs? I thought you couldn't do that. Naruto thought, trying to find the answers but couldn't. With Konoha's team, Naruto-kun, Sakura said, I'm worried. I don't believe it. He actually performed an Earth-style jutsu without showing any signs. But that's impossible, Tenten exclaimed. With Sound's team. Cool. Yo and Hao said. Just as I thought. Ayato's clan's secret jutsu nature-style method. It is true you can only perform any type of jutsu by performing them with a series of specific hand signs and meanings, otherwise, the jutsu won't activate, and it will fail. But in Ayato's case, it's different. Saraisu thought. While the same rules do apply to Ayato, nature-style jutsus are done in a very different way for him, by focusing on molding his chakra through the palm of his hands into the ground, air, water, fire, or lightning. He can mold the chakra into these elements instead. It's a special gene only those from the family of his mother can perform in. At least that's what Ayato told me. Saraisu thought. In the arena. What the? Naruto exclaimed, as another spike pillar was heading from behind Naruto's back. Naruto quickly positioned himself so. Rip. The pillar could only rip a piece of Naruto's baggy jacket. Naruto landed safely on the ground on his feet, before looking above him to see the other 3 pillars heading towards him. Naruto rushed so fast that each of the pillars one by one missed him. Now running at the edge of the wall, Naruto prepared himself but could see that the pillars were now fixed at the places they were at. While I can mold the chakra from my hands into the ground, I can only move or make whatever attack I mold into happen once. I might need to clap my hands again if I am able to perform another jutsu like that one again. Ayato thought. What's wrong? I thought we were getting serious. Ayato said, looking at Naruto with a serious glare on his eyes. This guy, he's so different from any other shinobi I've fought. Not only does he have some strange chakra that looks like a shadow, but he can manipulate justice by clapping his hands like that too. Naruto exclaimed. I don't think he's an ordinary shinobi. Naruto said. You and me, we're just getting started. Naruto declared, as he unzipped his torn jacket, throwing it on the ground while cracking his knuckles. One thing was for sure, this was gonna be one heck of a final battle of the Chunin exams. Location. Konoha's stadium's hallways. Ino, who had just left the infirmary, just started to walk towards the arena. Ino couldn't help but feel sorry for her Hyuga friend, who seemed to be very sad. Couldn't blame her. Her cousin Neji did get hurt. After all, he was lucky to be alive, to begin with. The stadium's hallways were quiet, very quiet. No surprise there, considering every single member of the audience was on the spectator seats watching the matches of the Chunin exams. It was almost a ghostly sight, with no one there but Ino. Intel. Are the preparations ready? Ino heard a man ask. Hi Genji-sama, we are prepared. Ino heard a man reply. When do we attack? Another man said. When the Otokage-sama gives the order to remain hidden and out of sight at all costs. I already had to clean up someone else's mess when they were spotted after curfew. The man whose voice belongs to Genji said. Attack. Ino whispered to herself. Ino slowly crept towards the wall and behind a vending machine where she could then see a man with a large sword on his back talking to 2 sound shinobi. Everything has to remain on plan no matter what. If you remember correctly, Gaara released his tailed beast a lot sooner than originally intended to, which was the main failure of our plan. I'm guessing the rest of the shinobi are eager to fight, especially them. Genji said, emphasizing them part. Are you sure we can trust them? One sound shinobi asked. Yes, why? Genji replied. It's just that, well, they may have agreed to help us. In fact, now their new leader is Orochimaru-sama, but originally they were criminals for their own personal gain. I heard the story that they refused to join the organization until they were forced to. The sound shinobi said. Their full loyalty is now in the hands of Orochimaru-sama. By this stage he had gained so much power, even I wouldn't dare to challenge. Genji explained. Also, they were the ones who agreed on their free will to join and betray their leader also. Genji explained. But what about him? One of the sound shinobi asked. You mean that one? Genji replied. The sound shinobi nodded. He was a part of Konoha once. In fact, he was an Anbu agent. His loyalty once belonged to the Hokage himself. The sound shinobi said. Once, yes, but not anymore. It had seemed the years he had spent as a missing shinobi had changed a few things about his personality. He also agreed to be a part of the invasion, so there's nothing to worry about. I just need the rest of our forces to stand by until the signal is made, and soon this village will fall, built anew in the image of Sound's favor. Genji explained. Sound's favor? Rebuilt? What are they talking about? Ino thought, trying to grasp what was going on. Ino placed her back against a vending machine so she could get a better sight at what was going on. However, some careless person had thrown a can next to the vending machine a while ago, which Ino had failed to see before shifting her feet, which then kick. She accidentally kicked the can, which made her gasp very lightly. Who's there? Genji ordered. I will see if another one has seen what we're up to, so why don't the two of you leave and give the orders to our forces? Genji said, as he began to walk towards the vending machine. May I ask what you are planning on doing to that person? A sound shinobi asked. Kill them, of course, no matter how old or who they are. I will not let the plan fail. Genji replied. Location: infirmary. Tayuya continued to look at the window, waiting for Sasuke and Hinata to move, which they started to do right now. Tayuya jumped up, hiding on the ceiling, ready for the two to come out. Come on, Hinata-chan, we should go back to the arena and see what's happening. Sasuke said. I know, Sasuke-kun, but I don't want to leave Neji behind. Hinata said. I'm sure Neji's okay. Besides, this match might not be that long. After all, I heard the Dobi is finally fighting. I get the chance to see how far his skills have grown this past month. Sasuke said. I guess you're right. Hinata said. Tayuya simply smirked, getting ready. In the arena, Rasengan. Naruto yelled, as he charged towards Ayato with a Rasengan. Dark Palm. Ayato yelled, as he waited for Naruto to come towards him so he could strike him with his Dark Palm. Boom. Both jutsus collided, causing a massive explosion which shot a massive shock wave around the entire arena, forcing many of the spectators to embrace themselves while trying to hold on to their seats so they would not be blown off. Why, you're huff strong. Naruto panted. So are huff you. Ayato panted. Naruto charged towards Ayato, delivering a punch to the sound genin, who took it to his face before grabbing Naruto's wrist. Once he grabbed Naruto's wrist, he grabbed a hold of Naruto's shoulder, then spun him, throwing him down to the ground on his stomach while holding onto his wrist and arm, locking him down in a wrist-arm position. Ow! Naruto grunted. This way you can't use any, not when your fingers are separated. Do you admit defeat? Ayato asked. Listen, buddy, I don't admit anything, I won't give up, believe it. Naruto replied, before pulling his arm back. Ayato held Naruto's arm, but the strength that Naruto was displaying was immense. He was pulling his own arm with such force it slowly was coming back to his body to the ground. Red chakra leaked out of Naruto's body, and the arm. Almost there, just a little more than his demon will escape. Ayato thought, before letting go of Naruto's arm, jumping a few meters back as Naruto stood up. What's wrong? You're scared? Naruto said, as his eyes began to change into the fox's eyes. I see, you have achieved one of the first stages of bonding with your inner demon. Ayato said, curious about Naruto's state. I guess the gloves are coming off, huh? No matter, I guess I will have to take mine off as well. With that said, Ayato closed his eyes and hummed to himself. Slowly, the exact same fire moving like shadowy chakra flowed around Ayato's body, similar to how Naruto's Kyuubi chakra was flowing. This feeling, it feels so familiar. Naruto thought with wide eyes, looking at Ayato out of shock. Shadow Slayer mode, Ayato said, his body covered in the shadowy fire-like chakra. On his cheeks some patterns appeared, patterns resembling fire flows going inwards on his cheeks. With Konoha's team, what the? His chakra strength just tripled. If not quad, What is this power? Shikamaru gasped. With Sound's team. What the? Yo and Hao said in shock. In the arena. Wind style. Wind bullets. Naruto yelled, doing a series of hand signs before spitting out from his mouth what appeared to be bullets made out of wind heading towards Ayato. Shadow style. Barrier. Ayato said, as he pointed the palm of his hand at where the bullets were coming to him. What appeared to form his palm seemed to be some kind of a shield made from shadows that prevented the bullets from hitting him. Rasengan. Naruto yelled, as he charged towards Ayato with a Rasengan in his hand. Dark Palm. Ayato yelled, as he charged towards Naruto with a dark palm in his hands. Boom. From the to the sky higher than the stadium, blue and shadow chakra collided, causing a massive shock wave and explosion that could be heard all the way to the very ends of the Leaf Village. The villagers gasped as they held on to each other and nearby items and structures to keep themselves stable, while the other genins were holding onto the rails with a tight grip to prevent themselves from flying away. The Junins and even Tsunade herself were shocked to see their power before them. Even Jiraiya never saw anything like it from a bunch of genins before. For all they knew, it was gonna be the fight of the history books, a battle between Konoha's recently strongest genin against Sound's strongest genin, a fight neither Sound or Konoha will ever forget in 100 years. Location. Stadium's hallways. Genji was walking down the hallways, scanning every angle he could find, trying to see if there were anyone who listened to Genji's orders with the exception of the men he was talking to. Alright, I know you're out there, Blondie. I can sense your chakra signature from afar. Genji called. Ino, who was hiding behind a pillar, kept her hands against her mouth, to make sure she wouldn't let out any noises whatsoever for Genji to hear. Ino did well to hide her voice, but she knew she couldn't stay hidden for long. She had to get to the Hokage, or her sensei, or any Junin or Chunin she could find and tell them of her findings concerning with the Sound Village. Ino wouldn't dare to ask or tell a Sand Shinobi considering their past with Konoha in the previous Chunin exams. I have to get this news to the Hokage-sama. Sound is betraying us, again. Ino thought. There is something you should know about me. Genji said. Fun fact, hide and seek isn't my type of game at all, however, Genji said, before he sliced through a pillar, taking only small strands of Ino's hair from her head, making the blonde shinobi gasp in horror. I am a great seeker when it comes to finding. Genji said, as he walked around to take a look at Ino. What do you want? Ino demanded, in horror. I don't want anything from you. Genji replied. However, since you know how much I said about the invasion, and what I said about it as well, I can't simply let you go scot-free and tell your superiors about the invasion. No, I will have to take care of you myself. Genji explained, looking at Ino with his eyes. Shame too, I was hoping I wouldn't have to spill blood before the invasion too. Genji complained to himself. If you kill me someone will notice it. Your plan will fail, and you will lose, Ino said, standing up for herself. Unlikely. I know how to clean up after myself, so don't worry about it. No one will ever know what happened to you, nobody. Genji said, with a voice that scared Ino so much, she reacted by running away from Genji at top speed. But first, let me have some fun with this girl before I cut her down. Genji said, as he walked slowly towards Ino, who was running at top speed away from her pursuer. I know he's just standing there to intimidate me. I have to use this opportunity to get to Tsunade-sama quickly and tell her what's going on. Ino thought, in panic, rushing as fast as her legs could carry her towards the nearest exit. Just as Ino could taste the fresh air again when she's just inches from leaving the stadium to the audience view, a powerful jutsu had zoomed past her, blocking the entire door in an invisible barrier, which was soundproof as well. Hey! Ino yelled as she banged her fists against the barrier. Bang. Please. Someone hear me out. We're under attack. Sound is betraying us again. We need to evacuate. Hurry. Please. Listen. Please. Ino screamed, banging her fists against the barrier as hard as possible, but the audience from the outside didn't see her or hear her at all. It's useless, the barrier I set up is designed specifically on assassination missions. No one can see you or hear you from the outside at all. It's a one-way barrier, so they can come in but can't come out of this barrier, though I can drop it anytime I want, which I'll do to avoid suspicion after I clean your head off. Genji said, with a smirk. Oh yeah, Ino said, as she grabbed from her kunai pouch a set of kunai, before throwing them at Genji at high speed. Genji merely sighed in a boring tone, not amused of Ino's attack, and with ease blocked each kunai one by one in different directions, redirecting them to a different area of the hallways. I am a Junin elite myself, I have to deal with a lot, and I mean a lot, what the shinobi world has to offer me. One little genin can't possibly be a difficult task to take. By the end of the day, Yakamana, you are too weak to face me with that kind of strength yet. Genji said, as he walked slowly towards Ino, who gasped before running away again. Location: Infirmary. The doors to the infirmary inside the stadium creaked open, before creaking again to be closed by both genins, Sasuke, and Hinata, who both had just recently left after giving a lot of company time for the unconscious Neji Hyuga. They both walked. Sasuke walked ahead but stopped when he noticed a certain someone was falling behind. He stopped and turned around, sighing as he looked at Hinata's eyes, which were telling him the whole story. You know, I doubt Neji wants to see you sad. Sasuke said, with a calm smile for the Hyuga girl. I'm sorry Sasuke-kun, it's just that well. I'm worried about Neji, Hinata said, with a sad tone in her voice. Sasuke sighed one more time, before looking at Hinata again, before he said, you know, Neji had fought well, remember we weren't the only ones struggling. In the second phase of the Chunin exams, he and his team struggled too. The doctors said Neji needed rest, all we can do is be there for him, but I don't think worrying about him every second will help him. In fact, I think the more we worry about him, inside, he must be angry with himself, for making us so worried, especially you, so I think we should have faith he's gonna pull through this. Sasuke said, which surprised Hinata a lot. Hinata couldn't agree more. What Sasuke said was true. Knowing Neji after the first Chunin exams incident, there were times Neji had grown worried for Hinata's sake. She had to have faith, otherwise Neji deep inside his sleep will keep blaming himself. Thank you, Sasuke-kun. Hinata said. Well, two people from different clans agreeing on the same subject, that's new. Both Sasuke and Hinata heard a voice coming from the ceiling. They both turned their heads up and saw Tayuya, who had a smirk on her face, smiling at the two genins while holding her hands tight against the ceiling spread out. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I intruding? Tayuya mocked. Sasuke walked in front of Hinata, holding an arm in front of her, a way to protect her from Tayuya. It was just something that didn't seem right to him. As a matter of fact, yes you were. Sasuke said. You must be this Tayuya Ino spoke of. You gave our friend a heck of a beating, you didn't even try to hold back as Ino had told us. Sasuke said, looking at Tayuya with narrowed eyes ready for battle. You mean that dumb blonde bimbo weakling? Oh yeah, I fought her and didn't show her any mercy at all, so what? Tayuya mocked, again. Don't you dare insult Ino-chan again. She tried her best. You were the one that hurt her. Hinata spoke up for Ino's defense. Look, princess. This is the shinobi world, the way shinobi life works, there are no rules except for these two. It's do and survive. Tayuya said, emphasizing on the two words she spoke loudly out to the genins. Which reminds me, I heard a certain someone in your village has some unfinished business with a certain something. Tayuya said, looking at Sasuke. If you're talking about Naruto and the Kyuubi incident that happened a while back, you're just wasting your precious time. Naruto and Kyuubi seem to have calmed down now. If you intend to speak to Naruto, however, you will have to go through me first. Understand? Sasuke threatened. Naruto. Do you mean that blonde annoying boy? Oh please. I have better things to do than hear the annoying chatter of some idiot. Tayuya said, which earned her a few angry groans from the genins. Oh no. I'm not talking about him at all. I'm talking about your personal issue, one concerning your older brother, Itachi. Tayuya said. Itachi. Sasuke exclaimed. Of course, if I heard it from Orochimaru-sama himself, you have a deep grudge against your older brother for what he had done to you all those years ago to your family. You swore revenge, which was why Orochimaru-sama, gave you this rap, Tayuya said, as she pulled a piece of her clothing from her shoulder, revealing another curse seal, like the one Sasuke has, on her shoulder. Where did you get that? Sasuke asked, in surprise. Oh, this. Orochimaru-sama gave it to me. He considered it a graduation gift. Something to remember him by. Tayuya said. But this isn't as close as strong as your curse seal. He designed yours specifically for you and yours only. This is the most powerful curse seal out of all of us. Tayuya said. Did you say Orochimaru? Hinata asked in shock. Yes, I did. Tayuya replied. Let me tell you about Sasuke. The power you have of that curse seal is only a small fraction of the true power it truly contains. There are others just like you and me. Others who have an identical seal like yours. Tayuya said. And what do you want from me? Sasuke asked, trying to get the upper hand of the conversation. Simple. We just want one thing, and one thing only, you. Tayuya replied, pointing at Sasuke as she finished her sentence. Location. Hallways. Ah. Ino screamed, trying to get the attention of anybody who was still in the hallways but didn't, which meant no one was in there because they were too busy watching the matches outside in the arena. Genji just slowly walked behind Ino, who still ran as fast as she could from Genji, who was too busy having fun with her. You can run, you can hide, but you'll die soon. Genji said, with a smirk on his face. Ino ran as fast as possible, trying to get away from Genji. But she knew something was strange, she didn't realize at the time, but it felt like that she felt this chakra signature before, in the Forest of Death. Sure, Ino was never there when Genji had attacked, but she did feel this before in the Forest of Death, along with other incredible powerful chakra signatures. This man's gonna kill me unless I don't do something. Ino said to herself, as she rushed as fast as she could away from Genji. Ino immediately slid on the ground on her foot and knee, kneeling down while positioning her fingers and hands to the Yakumana signature jutsu they would use against their opponents. I may not have completely regenerated all of my chakra, but I still have enough to use against that creep. Ino said, as she narrowed her eyes more and more as Genji slowly approached her. Let's see how you handle this. Mind destruction jutsu, Ino yelled, as she closed her eyes, aiming the jutsu at Genji, who seemed to have disappeared then reappeared behind Ino. Impossible, Ino exclaimed at Genji's powerful speed. Boom. Genji thrust his hand behind Ino's head, then pushed it straight to the ground at high speed, almost breaking it. Got ya, Genji said. Ah, Ino screamed as she had become immobilized by Genji. Now, how would your death be? Quick and simple, or slow and suffering? Which one? Genji said. Ino's eyes looked back at Genji filled with nothing but anger towards the Sound Junin. The only question Ino had in her mind was this, what was she gonna do? In the arena. Ah! Naruto yelled. Ah! Ayato yelled. Both genins clashed their signature jutsus once again at one another, creating yet another powerful explosion that created a powerful shock wave almost knocking the audience away, literally. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto yelled, doing a series of hand signs before stopping, allowing a group of shadow clones to appear behind him one by one, looking at Ayato with eyes filled with determination and fight. Shadow doubles. Ayato yelled, as he did a series of hand signs too. A large shadow circle enveloped around Ayato on the ground he stood one, before that perfect shadow circle deformed, leading to small hills which slowly morphed into people, who fleshed out and became other Ayatos once the color of the shadow disappeared from their bodies, becoming actual versions of Ayato. So, I guess you know a clone jutsu as well? Naruto asked, smiling. Me, Kageyaki, and Kage all know a certain clone jutsu which we can make. Attack. Ayato replied. Once he finished his sentence, he screamed the last part out, allowing his clones to attack Naruto's clones, which soon became a battlefield. For many Junin and the greater experienced Chunin, this gave them some painful memories of the wars they were in, that included some of the retired shinobi. Even the Junins and Tsunade with Jiraiya themselves had almost experienced a bad memory land themselves, remembering the hardest decisions they had to make over the wars and the blood that was spilled. Right now, it had been over 10 minutes since Ayato's and Naruto's fight had begun, which seemed to be a stalemate as neither side were having the better of the other. Once the clones were gone, Ayato and Naruto were fighting using their taijutsu styles. Ayato kicked Naruto, who blocked that with a kick from himself. Ayato grabbed Naruto's leg, then pulled it towards him so he could get a good angle at punching Naruto's face, only for Naruto to increase the speed by grabbing Ayato's leg and dodging Ayato's punch just merely. However, Ayato punched Naruto in the gut when he was behind Ayato. After that, Ayato then proceeded to deliver a series of right-handed punches towards Naruto's gut, but Naruto took them in one by one, before using the substitution jutsu which made Ayato punch a log instead. Naruto, now on the ground thanks to his jutsu, had formed a Rasengan in his hand, jumping towards Ayato with it ready to strike the sound genin with it. Rasengan. Naruto yelled as he thrust his Rasengan at Ayato, who managed to grab his wrist in time before he could strike him. Ayato then attempted to twist Naruto's arm, but Naruto jumped up, almost drilling in the air before landing on his feet when Ayato tried to twist his arm. Once Naruto was on solid ground, he lunged towards Ayato, where he then attempted to strike him with a fist, which he did to the gut, but Ayato already had drawn his fist and struck Naruto in the gut as well. Ah! Both Naruto and Ayato yelled as they then delivered a series of punches to one another. Punch, 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 punch. Bam! The final blows were delivered at each other's faces. Naruto's fist on Ayato's face, with Ayato's fist on Naruto's face. They both then panted entire, Ayato looking at Naruto's demonic eyes and looked. "We've been huff at this for a while now, huh?" Ayato asked as he panted. "We huff have," Naruto replied as he panted. "No more holding back, I can tell the way you're fighting that you're holding back some power in you," Ayato said, as he rubbed his saliva from his mouth from fighting with his wrist. "You're right, I won't hold back any more punches, from this point onwards we're fighting with all we've got." "Believe it," Naruto said with a voice filled with nothing but determination. Location: Infirmary outside. Itachi, former Anbu captain and the youngest to be made, as I hear the story he became an Anbu at the age of 13. It wasn't until several years ago he became from Anbu captain to a nuke nin, the most dangerous type of rogue nin anyone can find. Tayuya explained. In fact, he upgraded his status, as I hear he joined this secret organization run by a bunch of rogue nun like him called the Akatsuki. Even his partner, as I hear Kisame, is a force to be reckoned with also, being one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist and above Zabuza's level of strength. Tayuya explained further, looking into Genin's eyes which were filled with disbelief and shock. You know where Itachi is? Sasuke asked, which created concerns for Hinata. No, not really. Tayuya replied simply, as she dropped on her feet to the ground looking at Sasuke with a smile. But if you were to say, join us, I believe we can do everyone a favor. We can help you find Itachi. Tayuya explained. However, as I heard you were beaten by Itachi pretty easily, even the great Kakashi Hatake couldn't prepare you for that one. In fact, Kakashi, as I heard, had got his ass kicked by Itachi as well, so if you were to stay as his pupil your time for revenge against Itachi will come maybe around 100 years, Tayuya said as she joked about it to Sasuke. Not only will we give you Itachi's location, but also the necessary strength to beat him and kill him if you want to. Tayuya said. I have the teachings of Kakashi Hatake already, I don't need the teachings of a rogue shinobi. Sasuke said, defending himself. As I said, Kakashi got his ass kicked easily by Itachi. You have no idea how the gap between him and Itachi must be. All 4 Junin elites went against only 2 members of the Akatsuki and got beaten pretty badly, so how do you think you can learn and become stronger when you're being taught by someone weaker than him, huh? Tayuya said with a smile as she slightly chuckled. If you truly want to beat Itachi, then you have to learn from the best yourself. Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sanins, encountered 2 of the exact same Akatsuki members as the Junins did, and guess what? Tayuya said. They both chickened out and straight off left without laying a finger on the Toad Sanin's vest. He was so powerful, so strong they didn't dare to fight him knowing how powerful he was at the time. Tayuya said. So, if Orochimaru-sama is a former member of the legendary Sanin and is stronger than Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya, even with the loss of his hands and arms, he's a lot more powerful than Itachi. Tayuya finished. Sasuke didn't want to accept it, but what Tayuya said was right. Comparing Kakashi's strength to Jiraiya's, there was a major power gap between the two. Not only that, but he had heard that Itachi and Kisame ran away from Jiraiya fearing his strength. Even though he wasn't awake at the time, he believed every detail of the story. Not only that, but he also heard of the battle between Orochimaru against Tsunade and Jiraiya. Even with the loss of his arms, he gave both the Sanins the hardest time ever. With strength like that, Sasuke would stand a better chance against Itachi, maybe even more so. But to achieve one strength, Sasuke would have to learn from Orochimaru, even though he knew that the power Orochimaru knew was by learning illegal and forbidden jutsus. And let's say if I did decide to leave, what then? Sasuke asked. Well, that's a stupid question. Tayuya replied. You'll become a traitor to Konoha, dummy. The village, like Orochimaru-sama himself, that happened will treat you like a criminal no matter how old you are. Once you put that shinobi headband on your forehead, your rights as a kid are long gone that very second. Tayuya explained. But hey, you can't get power for free unless there's something you're willing to give up. It's the basic principle of chakra that every living thing has to follow and obey. For example, like Naruto Dufus. Tayuya said. I mean, look at the price he had to pay for great power. Konoha had to take everything he had away from him and abused just to make him a weapon. The second the 9 tails were sealed inside of him was the second his life as an average person was way over. Now he has no rights either but as a weapon. No matter what way you look at it, it's the way the shinobi world is. They see people like you, me, that kid, and perhaps every other shinobi that has some powerful bloodline limit or strength is considered to be nothing more and nothing less but a weapon meant to serve people and never to be used against its user. That's the way the shinobi world works. Tayuya finished her sentence. Now then, what do you choose? Tayuya asked. Let me think about it. Sasuke replied as his hair had covered his eye when he tilted it downwards. I think I've made my decision, Sasuke said, as he smiled at Tayuya while reaching for his kunai pouch. Sasuke-kun, Hinata said in worry. Location. Hallways. Help me please. Someone. I don't want to die. Ino yelled, hoping that someone would hear her screams and come to her rescue or call for shinobi to save her. Keep screaming, but I set up barriers all around the entrance here with the exception of the ones that lead to the arena inside of the stadium. You can scream as loud as you want even if the pointed glass breaks, but nothing's gonna change. Genji said. Why? Why are you doing this? What did Konoha, the village, everyone here ever do to sound? The village wasn't developed until recently. Ino asked as she tried to control herself and the tears that were leaking from her eyes. Simple. Genji replied. Have you ever wondered what the world on the outside looked like? In fact, with the exception of all those history lessons and textbooks, you have no idea what the true horrors of the world can be like. Or how much blood is spilled on a daily basis. Genji said as he started to sound like he was enjoying Ino's suffering with a maniac-like tone in his voice. Every day is the same as the last. One person dies and everyone goes along with that person. Do you have any idea how many villages are settled in the first year before falling in the next month? I'll give you a guess. Hundreds. Genji explained, shouting at the last part. What? Ino exclaimed. You heard. Hundreds. When a new village has been made like sound recently, they don't usually have a lot of money or finance to pay for the whole village, not like you people here in Konoha. So, in order for people like us to survive, we have to destroy the other villages smaller and weaker than ours, then take their weapons and jutsus in order to grow stronger and stronger. That is how the shinobi world works. Genji explained. Compared to sound, I can't tell you how much blood is in the hands of the 5 great shinobi nations, that includes Konoha. Genji said. Konoha never stoops so low with the likes of you. Ino argued for her village's sake. Oh, please don't tell me you fell for that garbage in the lessons or history books of Konoha. Your Hokage may tell you about the great heroes that lived in Konoha even before your parents did, but I bet they wouldn't tell you how much blood they spilled just to get where you are today. That's a tainted legacy. Let me explain this, girl. Genji started. How many lives do you think Konoha had to take? Since you're little and still young, you wouldn't understand it, but I bet they told you about how heroic some of the past heroes of the village here were and how they protected the village, but that was partially the truth. Genji explained. By the end of the day, your village invaded others, even eliminated other contenders so they would be the last ones standing. Genji finished. You're wrong. Dad and Mom always told me how they were willing to sacrifice themselves for Konoha. Ino argued. True. For Konoha. Genji said, emphasizing on the last part. People like your daddy and mommy are willing to do anything for the village, even if it might mean taking a few lives away and destroying other villages as long as Konoha can prosper. If you knew the exact history of your beloved village, then you would understand what they did wrong. Genji explained. Hisashi Hyuga, if I hear, gave his life away for a noble to live and to protect Konoha's name, even if it meant that the family who Hisashi Hyuga murdered, the ambassador of Cloud, would never receive the justice they deserve. Genji finished. But it was cloudy. They tried to take Hinata away. They started the whole thing first and acted like they were victims. It was to defend not just Konoha's name but the village itself. If Neji's father never gave his life up like that, Hinata's father would never be sacrificed and Cloud and Konoha would be continuing the war they wanted to end for so long. Ino objected. You don't understand anything about Konoha like I do. I was born and raised here, you weren't. Ino said as she growled at Genji. And I was born in a village once called the village hidden in the silver. It was once a small village with barely any shinobi on the lands. In fact, the village's purpose was to trade with merchants, then trade with other villages, working in a system while having some shinobi to protect us. Genji explained. Then one day, an enemy of one of our allies attacked us so their enemy would lose their trade and supplies. They slaughtered us like pigs, took away everything we held dear to us. That happened in the Third Great Shinobi War. Genji explained further, gripping tighter on Ino's head as a result of his incoming anger. The remaining survivors, took our revenge on that village long ago. The village hidden in the minerals was destroyed by us as vengeance for what they did to us, but we learned something that day. Genji explained. It'd seem as though Konoha, you people had the chance to save us but didn't. Their enemy was yours as well, so you let us die and be killed so you would take the advantage in the war without having to lay a finger on us. Genji finished, his voice filled with slight anger. What? You're lying, ah! Ino screamed as Genji tightened his hold on Ino's head. Then all took a second vow, one that we would fulfill our true revenge. Since Konoha refused to save us that day when they had the chance, they are just as guilty as the village hidden in the minerals are. This is why you people should just burn away. Genji spat at the last part of the sentence. Everything we lost, including. Genji said, taking a brief pause. Brother, when I become the Mikage, the leader of our village, I want our people to live in peace and prosperity. It is my dream to lead our people no matter what. A voice spoke in Genji's head. Author's note. MI is for minerals mixed with the work cage. Including. My brother. Genji finished his sentence. But he lost his life a long time ago in that fight, and if Konoha had helped us that very day, we wouldn't have the need for vengeance. Genji explained. Not only did my brother die that day, but so did women, men, and children who had no understanding of the world just yet, kids who were brutally murdered because they were participating in the trades in order to spend more time with their parents. The shinobi that attacked us laughed like it was some kind of a sick joke to us, smiling and drinking at our expense before we awakened our inner techniques and training that we were given by the Mikage before his passing. We killed them without mercy. Then years went by and Orochimaru-sama saved us and gave us a place to live while we served him as well, before he finally helped us to remove that stain from the face of the earth permanently. Genji explained. We didn't give even the innocent mercy, so it's why I won't give. Genji said, as he reached for his back, pulling out a green jade-decorated silver katana from his back. Even the likes of you have mercy in this village too. Genji said, as he then pointed his sword near Ino's face, which her eyes widened in fear. In the arena. Ah! Naruto yelled. Ah! Ayato yelled. Punch! Both of their fists smashed each other in a head-on collision, forcing the two genins to pull them back, landing on their feet. You know what? For someone who is as strong as Sasuke Tem or stronger, you sure that person would have joined the Chunin exams last year, why not? Naruto asked while panting. I told you when we first met, I was on a mission during the Chunin exams, an escort mission. And even if I did want to come to Konoha to participate, there wouldn't have been any time left for me to join up. To be honest, I wanted to focus on my special training until the next exams. Ayato replied, explaining Naruto his reasoning. Honestly, even if you did join the exams at the time, I wouldn't stand a chance against you like I do now. Naruto said, his face filled with slight worry. This is bad. If I don't do something soon, we could be fighting it out like this forever and ever. Think Naruto. Naruto thought to himself. Now Naruto, you must understand that the Kopi eyes are powerful and useful, they may come with a very heavy price. Like other bloodlines with eye power, these jutsus can tear your mind apart. I wouldn't recommend using them just yet, but if you do use them during the Chunin exams, then know this. Use only a small partial part of their power for a few minutes, around 3 minutes. Once you did that, do not waste of the time. Kakashi's voice spoke in a small temporary flashback towards Naruto. I guess I have no choice. Naruto thought, taking a stance while holding up a finger sign in front of his face while yelling. Ah! Naruto yelled. Kopi. Naruto yelled one more time, his eyes turning color and shape when he activated his bloodline. The crowd was speechless, even the older generations were. The last time anyone, even the shinobi, saw the Namikaze clan's sacred dujutsu was from their now deceased fourth Hokage. He has the fourth Sama's eyes. One member of the audience exclaimed. He has the Hokage's eyes. Another exclaimed. He has Minato-sama's eyes. One member of the audience also exclaimed. Now, let's end this. Naruto said, looking at Ayato with a serious glare. Yes, let's. Ayato said, as he closed his eyes, doing the exact same sign as Naruto did. What the? Naruto said out of confusion. With the Junins. Is it safe for Naruto to use the jutsu? Asuma asked. Yes. No. Kakashi replied. Please explain to us in detail. Kurenai said. Yes. Naruto now can use his bloodline limit, but no, he cannot maintain it properly like me and Sasuke can with ours. Kakashi explained. With the cages. Looks like this match just got a little interesting, don't you agree, Tsunade-sama? The Otokage asked. Yes, indeed. Tsunade replied. Bash. T Tsunade-sama. Hinata exclaimed, as she abruptly came through the doors. When Tsunade turned her head, her jaw almost dropped when she saw the young Hyuga girl's hoodie covered in blood, while holding her right shoulder in extreme pain. Hinata. Tsunade said, as she rushed towards the genin. What happened to you? Tsunade asked in panic. Sasuke-kun. He. Hinata replied, trying to answer Tsunade's question. He what? Hinata. Tsunade said, holding Genin's shoulders. So Tayuya accomplished her mission. Guess Sasuke can finally become Orochimaru sensei's student for power. The Otokage thought. Hinata. You're bleeding everywhere. Tsunade said, looking at Hinata's soaked blood clothes. It's not my blood. Hinata said quietly. It's Sasuke-kun's. We were attacked by a sound genin. Hinata said, holding back tears as they started to form in her eyes. She tried to get Sasuke-kun to join Orochimaru. Sound is up to something. Sasuke-kun told me to run and tell you. While he would hold off the genin, he got cut really bad. Hinata explained while tears fell between her sentences. What is the meaning of this? Tsunade said, turning her head towards the Otokage in anger. Location. Hallways. This is the end, Yakamana. Genji said, as he thrust his sword towards Ino's face, who had screamed, preparing herself for the pain to come. Only it didn't. Shadow striking snake. Ino heard the familiar voice that belongs to Anko yelled. Snakes wrapped around Genji's arm and body and sword, stopping his attack on Ino. Looks like I found you again, you're from the forest of death. Anko said, looking at Genji with angry eyes. Nice to meet you again, Mitarashi. Genji said. In the arena. Now then, time for my clan's bloodline limit, Ayato said, as an aura of dark chakra started to envelop his body. Kopi. Ayato yelled, as he changed to the exact color and shape as Naruto's were. What the? What's going on? Naruto said in disbelief and complete shock. In the arena. What's going on? Naruto repeated himself a second time when looking at Ayato with the kopi in his eyes. Stunned, disbelieving, his opponent had the bloodline of the Namikaze inside of his eyes and why? With the cages. Anbu now. Tsunade yelled, ordering her Anbu Black Ops shinobi to jump down, surrounding both the cage and Otokage, holding katanas and kunais against them in a semicircle. I'm going to be straight with this only once. What is the meaning of this? Why did one of your genin attack Konoha's genin after their match in the Chunin exams? You know that's treason. Tsunade said with anger written all over in her voice. Tayuya, what happened? Growled the thoughts of an angry Otokage. Location. Konoha's stadium's hallways, specific location, nearby the infirmary. Cough 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 cough, damn it. Tayuya swore as she walked down the hallways. Tayuya was leaning against the wall with her left shoulder, blood painting it as she held her left gut in pain with her clothes stained in both of hers and Sasuke's blood. I never knew that the kid would attack me like that. I guess the plan failed. Tayuya said, remembering that infuriating memory of getting tricked by Sasuke. Flashback begins. What do I think? Sasuke repeated himself for the third time as he lowered his head to the point his hair covered his eyes while giving what appeared to be an evil smirk. I think. Sasuke began. Hinata grew worried. I think, Hinata-chan should run and tell the Hokage about this. Sasuke said as he turned his head up and looked at Tayuya with a confident smile. What? Both Hinata and Tayuya said in confusion. Hinata-chan, you heard. Sasuke yelled as he grabbed a kunai from his pouch. Run. Sasuke yelled as he threw the kunai towards Tayuya. You bastard. If you love her so much, why don't you have a front row seat to her death? Tayuya said in anger as she grabbed the kunai Sasuke thrown at her and raced towards Hinata at unbelievable speed. Hinata gasped, not knowing what to do as her legs froze in fear. She felt someone shove her body, which made her collapse to the ground on her ass. Hinata rubbed her back in slight pain before looking at the person who did it. Ah! Sasuke yelled, as the kunai that was meant for Hinata had struck him instead as he saved his lover at the last second. Sasuke-kun! Hinata yelled before getting up, rushing towards Sasuke, but Sasuke lifted an arm which signaled Hinata to stop, while Tayuya had pulled away from Sasuke, holding her gut in pain. Damn it! Killing you wasn't part of the plan. Tayuya said as she held her bleeding gut. Tayuya looked at Sasuke before taking a better look at his right hand, which held another kunai stained in her blood, before Tayuya said, I see, you pushed her out of the way and grabbed another kunai and struck me with it. But you could have blocked it if you had the time. Hinata-chan, please do what I say and get Hokage-sama. Sasuke groaned in pain. But Sasuke-kun, Hinata objected. She's a great healer, perhaps the best. Do you not think if you get her, she'll be able to heal me? Please. I will hold her off. I won't hold anything against you for this. Sasuke said, still feeling the stinging pain from his gut. Oh okay, but please be careful. Hinata said, crying at the last part before rushing towards Tsunade. You're not going anywhere. Tayuya yelled as she began rushing towards Hinata, but an arm blocked her path. She looked at the pained Sasuke, who had one eye open while the other closed due to the intense pain. You're fighting with me. If Orochimaru wants me to join, I bet he wants me to live, which means no matter what you're not allowed to kill me, Sasuke said in between groans. Damn you! Tayuya growled in rage. Flashback ends. Even after that, he still had a lot of fight in him. Orochimaru-sama is gonna be beyond pissed when he hears I killed his target. But I had no choice. Tayuya said, fearing what her superior will do to her once he finds out she killed the boy he wanted him to join the most. Meanwhile with Sasuke. Sasuke was lying against the wall on his back, still near the infirmary and bleeding a lot. He coughed some blood from his mouth, holding the wounds Tayuya gave him in pain, while the other parts of him were getting weaker and weaker due to the amount of blood he was losing. I have no idea how long it will take. Sasuke groaned. For all I know, Hokage-sama must be confronting both Gaara and the Otokage as we speak. Sasuke groaned in pain as a massive surge of it went through his body. Gaara helped us with Naruto. So, I hope, for Naruto's sake, that he's not behind this as well. Sasuke gave a massive yell as he felt incredible pain surge through his body one more time. His vision became blurry, and his body became cold, now feeling that his end was near. Is this how I die, protecting my loved one, then dying here of all places? Naruto, Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, Hinata-chan. Sasuke thought, with hardly any power to speak to himself with. I guess I'll never have revenge against Itachi. Now, Sasuke thought, as before he was hallucinating a pair of Itachi's Sharingan eyes. But soon they became the eyes of a Hyuga. Strange, when did Itachi have the Byakugan? Sasuke thought, before he fell to unconsciousness. With Tayuya, Orochimaru-sama might be pissed with me. Tayuya said as she continued her walk. In the arena, What's wrong, you look surprised? Ayato asked in sarcasm while enjoying Naruto's look of confusion. But, I thought me, and my dad were the only ones who had the copy. Naruto replied in confusion. Ayato chuckled before, Murasaki no. Ayato yelled, as his eyes changed shape and form once again to match Kageyaki's Kesho clan's family dujutsu. Crystal style. Crystal spikes jutsu. Ayato yelled, a crystal with the same color as Kageyaki's, came from the ground and was directed towards Naruto. Damn, Naruto said before dodging the spikes by running perpendicular to their direction of him, which meant he was running, and the spikes were hitting the wall. I thought I was the only one that had Kopi. So how does he have the exact same dujutsu as I do? It doesn't make sense. Naruto thought to himself, before crouching then rolling as the last of the spikes finally pinned themselves against the wall. I can't worry about that now. I have to focus on the battle here and now or I might be pinned. Literally. Naruto said to himself, now focusing on his battle against Ayato. But what bloodline do I have copied? I don't think I have Haku's or Neji's bloodlines yet since I never had these eyes until after I had tried to run away. Naruto exclaimed in his thoughts. Except for, wait, Kakashi-sensei told me this. He told me this specific detail. Naruto thought. While you may have never unlocked the copy until your attempt to leave Naruto, I can assure you if you remember the specific details of the bloodline then your memories should suffice. Kakashi's voice from a few weeks back before the third phase of the Chunin exams rang in Naruto's head as advice. If what Kakashi-sensei said was true then maybe. Yes, I can do it. Let me try an eye which I've seen before. How about Sasuke Tem's eyes? Naruto thought of Sasuke's eyes. Here goes nothing. Naruto exclaimed. I'll just copy his bloodline to level the playing fields. Ayato said as he looked at Naruto with the copy. Now time for Sharingan. Naruto yelled as he turned his eyes into the Sharingan. What is he thinking? Is he trying to kill himself? Ayato yelled in pure shock while trying to deactivate his bloodline. But the genin was too late and so Naruto would pay the price. The Sharingan disappeared from Naruto's eyes as soon as it had once appeared after a split second. What the? Naruto said, trying to understand what was happening and why his bloodline deactivated last second. My head, Naruto said, holding his head tight in pain. It hurts. Ah, Naruto yelled. And no, I was too late. I was so focused on deactivating my bloodline that I failed to realize not to look at his eyes. It's so painful. Ah, Ayato yelled. Naruto held his head tightly, feeling the pain and burn in his brain while Ayato was holding his eyes with his hands palms on them in pain, both genin screaming in pain. The audience was speechless, some terrified while some of the sound shinobi present were cringing at this sight. With the audience. There behind the audience, a man wearing glasses with white silver hair, pale skin, blue eyes, wearing a white robe with a katana on the left side of his waist watched, unnoticed by the crowd for a while. His name was Tatsumi Frost. Author's note. Frost is a made-up name mainly with the word frost but replaced with AZ rather than AT. A shinobi who watched the Chunin exams far in the back, hardly noticed by the genins or the audience or any of the sound, sand, or leaf shinobi. No, damn it. Frost said in a silent growl. This can't be happening. Both Ayato and the nine-tailed Jinchuriki are part of the plan to take Konoha down and destroy it. If both collapse here and now the plan will fail. Especially since anyone who gets mentally damaged by the Kopi's power will be in a coma for days. Hopefully they're strong enough or. Spike. Frost said before he was cut off by a spike of chakra had been felt by Frost, who looked towards the cage booth and looked at the windows trying to see what was happening. A large spike of energy was felt so huge it was impossible to miss. Without anyone knowing there was a boom. The cage's booth exploded, leaving the audience gasping at sight, believing that their beloved fifth Hokage may have been killed. Location. Stadium's hallways. Shortly before the explosion hit, Anko Mitarashi was holding down her opponent who still had his katana close to Ino's face. Drop it. Anko ordered. You were the proctor of the second phase of the Chunin exams Anko Mitarashi if I ain't correct. Genji said, turning his head towards Anko. And I guess you were the bastard who attacked me and the Chunin sensei back in the Forest of Death. Anko said, let me tell you something, until the Chunin exams, the Forest of Death is the training grounds for one person only. And that person would be me. So in other words you were trespassing onto my territory. Anko said with a smirk on her face. My apologies. But I had to sneak into your territory for a bit by the orders of my cage. Genji said. Funny. I thought genins weren't meant to have aid or help from any of the higher-ups during the trials of the Chunin exams. Which in this case should have been illegal. Anko said. But since we are on the subject of your otokage, please tell me something important. Anko said. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with the Yakumana about this invasion. Anko said. So, you know huh? Genji said. You know, you should have stayed at your post, what changed your mind? Genji asked. Well, when I was watching the fight between the loud blonde kid against the brown-haired one, I heard some screaming. These hallways can create an echo of screams that travel throughout the stadium, but no one ever heard of it before. When I heard I ventured in and found the barriers you set up at the entrances to the spectator seats from here. However, you didn't set a barrier where I was, so now, we are here. Anko replied. So now, what about this invasion? Anko said with a smirk. A small boom. The sound that came from the cage's booth had shook the stadium itself so much they all felt the shake. Looks like that's the cue. Genji said as he stood up from Ino before turning to Anko. Location. Hallways near the infirmary. Slowly, but surely, Sasuke had opened his eyes to get a blurry vision temporarily before it all cleared away, allowing him to see much better. There he saw 3 figures along with a couple of shinobi in the background looking at him. Once it cleared, he saw them perfectly. Shizune was holding her hands on Sasuke's body with her hands covered in green chakra while she was healing him from the injuries. Neji was behind Shizune looking at Sasuke with a glare of shock on his face. Surprised Sasuke managed to survive the attack while Hinata was by Sasuke's side slowly crying in joy and relief that he had survived. What happened? Sasuke asked weakly. When you told Hinata to get Tsunade-sama, we immediately came here with a few shinobi guards to save you. Shizune replied. But before they came, I awoke. The noise woke me up from outside, so I came to investigate and saw you on the ground. I managed to place bandages on you to stop the blood from flowing out of your body, and by that stage Shizune had arrived. Neji explained, finishing for Shizune. That reminds me. There's something I need to tell you. Sasuke said frantically. I already told them, Sasuke-kun. Hinata said, hugging Sasuke. Yes, she did. To be honest, right now Tsunade-sama is handling the otokage and the cage as we speak right now. Shizune informed. The cage? Is Sand also attempting to betray us as well again? Neji asked in confusion. We don't know, but it's better to be safe. Shizune replied. Boom. The sounds and shakes of the cage booth exploding reached them. What was that? Neji exclaimed. One of the Junin shinobi were holding their right ear on an ear headphone piece, getting the news like a security bodyguard does. He gasped, before sweat dropping, looking at Shizune and informing, Shizune-san. The cage booth blew up. We don't know how, but it just blew up for some reason. What? Shizune yelled in shock. We need to head back towards the arena right now. Shizune ordered, and everyone left right after her sentence had ended. With the cages. Shortly before the explosion, Tsunade was having a confrontation with the otokage. Shizune. Take Hinata and rush back to Sasuke. I'll deal with the otokage myself. Tsunade ordered, and so Shizune had rushed with Hinata outside. So you want to answer my question? Tsunade said with an angered tone. I have absolutely nothing to say to the likes of you, Tsunade Senju. The otokage smirked. You do realize Sound is already on Konoha's bad side after the last invasion, don't you? It'd be wise to shed some light on your current actions, Attacking a Konoha shinobi is forbidden unless it's in an arranged arena like the one both of our genins are fighting right now. Tsunade warned. Those are my actions. Funny because you know, the Otokage said, before taking out a kunai with an explosive tag on it. I could have sworn one of them was trying to blow you up. Let's fix that, shall we? The Otokage said. What are you doing? Jiraiya exclaimed. Everyone get out of here. Tsunade yelled. But it was already too late. Boom. In the arena. Wah, what the? Naruto was speechless. The cage booth just exploded for no reason whatsoever. But he couldn't worry about that now, his head was still aching like bad. What's going on? Why do my eyes and head hurt so much? Please. Make it stop. Ah. Naruto yelled beyond belief, beyond what anyone thought he was capable of. And sooner or later, Naruto fell down in an unconscious state. Drop. Ah, it hurts. Luckily I managed to suppress the pain before it got even worse, but still. I'm in no condition to fight, not at least for around 30 minutes give or take. Ayato grunted in pain, but that pain was slowly fading away. Looks like he wasn't that lucky. He's definitely out for the count. But that means the plan is as well. Ayato said. Ayato attempted to stand, but he collapsed down to one leg. How's everyone reacting to this? Ayato said, as he looked at the audience expecting their silence to be their shock of the match. But it wasn't. What? Ayato exclaimed. The cage booth is now a smoking crater. What happened? No. The Otokage-sama. Don't tell me he's now preparing the invasion of all times. We need the nine-tailed Jinchuriki to fight. Ayato exclaimed in whispers in complete shock. There's no time for gawking. A strict, stern voice said. Ayato turned to see Froz right next to him staring at the cage's booth. Froz-san. Ayato exclaimed. You idiot. How could you think of using your kopi at a time like this in battle? Didn't it even occur to you that maybe, just maybe, this genin would have the same exact idea? Froz said in disappointment. But Froz-san, he used his kopi first. Ayato exclaimed. So, you didn't think that you should have outsmarted him instead? Compared to the knowledge of the kopi, you hold the greater bit while he does not. You could have easily tricked him into using the Sharingan since one of his teammates is a user of that dujutsu. Froz explained. He's right. If I hadn't been so foolish and used my kopi in overconfidence, then I wouldn't be this weak right now. What was I thinking? Ayato thought in anger. And on another note, it seems that Konoha may have gotten some idea of what our plan is. So, unless you want to help make sure the plan is a success, I would ask you to use your kopi against the nine-tailed Jinchuriki now while using the strongest genjutsu Orochimaru-sama allowed you to copy. Froz said. Other than Orochimaru-sama himself, you and the power you hold are the only one that can perform that genjutsu technique against the nine-tailed Jinchuriki and control him, especially when he's at his limited patience after his attempted departure from Konoha. Froz said. Froz looked at the unconscious Naruto and walked towards him, slowly picking him up and throwing him over his right shoulder. The invasion might as well begin more than ever. We'll take this one with us while we wait 30 minutes until you fully regain all of your strength. Froz said as he started to walk away. But he stopped when a sharp kunai was held against his throat. May I ask you something? Froz turned his eyes but not his head, knowing who was speaking to him. He saw Kakashi holding the kunai. Where do you think you're taking my student? Kakashi said in a stern voice. Soon, other shinobi surrounded both the genin and junin, holding kunais and katanas against them, circling them. Even Asuma and Kurenai were at the back of the circle while Guy was next to Kakashi. The crowd turned their gazes upon the arena now, looking at the scene before them. Some were shocked, scared, even horrified by remembering the events that took place half a year ago in the previous Chunin exams. Kakashi Hatake, son of the famous White Fang and the Sharingan copycat user. Pleased to meet you, Froz said sarcastically. Froz, the ice dragon shinobi of sound, I heard stories about you too. Kakashi said. With Konoha's team. What was that? An explosion? Shikamaru exclaimed. Naruto-kun. Sakura yelled while watching Naruto carried by a sound shinobi who was surrounded by the group of shinobi. Even knowing that he was in the safety of Kakashi Hatake, she had to help Naruto, so the unthinkable Sakura jumped onto the arena towards Naruto. Sakura, wait! Tenten called, running after Sakura. Sakura-chan. Lee yelled, following Tenten running after Sakura. This is such a drag. Shikamaru said while rushing with Lee and Tenten. Choji and Shino both stayed behind for a brief moment before Shino asked, "Aren't you going after them too?" "I would, but I would rather not get in that mess." Choji replied. "With Sound's team. Be prepared, it looks like it's beginning." Saraisu warned. "What?" Yo said. "So early," Hao said. "In the arena. Get back." Asuma warned when Sakura was close to the confrontation. "It's not safe for you genins. We need you to return to your seats." Kurenai warned. "But Naruto-kun," Sakura said. "Don't worry about him. Right now, we need you and the available shinobi to evacuate the stadium right here and now." Asuma said. "It's too late," Frost said, getting everybody's attention. A figure jumped out of the smoking crater that was once the cage's booth and landed on top of the stadium. The white robes of the Otokage were now removed, burning due to the explosion he made with his explosive kunai. Throwing it to the wind slowly burnt away, revealing his true attire. The Otokage had 2 red waves painted on each side of his cheeks going in on themselves with a pointy end, and his skin was pale. He wore a black jumped and above that open jacket that reached down to his waist, which was a t-shirt type having a red background while having black flames on the bottom of said jacket. His pants were gray, holding nothing more than a belt around his waist colored brown, which had 3 kunai pouches on the back of him, while the right side of his waist held a brown sheath not longer than his own forearm, holding a katana that length with bandages on as a holder on the handle with a bronze guard on it. He had black shinobi junin type shoes, and he also had black fingerless gloves on. On the back of his jacket he had the sound symbol on it. "Prepare," the Otokage announced as he grabbed from his pouch a red cylinder container which had a kanji symbol on it saying, "Flare." "For battle." With those last words said, the Otokage pulled a small string attached to the cylinder container which released a red flare into the sky, high and bright for the entire village to see. Location: Konoha's Walls Lookout. On top of one of Konoha's walls the shinobi were watching over as per usual of their daily jobs. "Can you believe it? I got called on a last-second job before I finished watching the Chunin exams," said a disappointed shinobi with a disappointed look on his face. "What's wrong? You already saw Sasuke in battle. Isn't that good enough? You wanted to watch him fight last Chunin exams, remember?" his friend reminded. "Yeah, but hearing that Naruto kid, I really thought that his fight would be a lot more interesting, especially when now I know he's the 4th Hokage's son and the last of the Namikaze clan. Oh well, I guess my life is back to being incomplete again," the shinobi said. Soon he had noticed a red flare burning brightly in the air above the village above the Chunin exam stadium. "What's that? Fireworks?" the shinobi asked. "No, it can't be. The fireworks are arranged only until the last phase is finished. It's too early to launch them. Also, I don't think that's fireworks. I think it's a flare," his friend replied. "A flare? For what?" the confused shinobi said. "Obviously for signaling." Another shinobi joined the conversation. "Signal for who?" Another shinobi joined with confusion in his voice. "For this. The shinobi who joined before the latest one had taken a swipe at his face with a kunai. "What are you doing?" the shinobi who spoke first had said in shock and confusion. Soon other sounds of fighting were heard. He looked behind him to see other leaf shinobi turning against their comrades. "But why? Wait a minute," he said with eyes widening in realization. "I'd never seen you before. Who are you?" he said before the shinobi threw away his headband, revealing his true colors. It was a sound headband. "You're a sound shinobi," the shinobi exclaimed. "Now die, UGHHHH," he said before a kunai was struck from his back by the shinobi's friend. In the arena, "O Otokage-sama, Froz said in shock. We have some difficulties. Froz said in a whisper before the Otokage flashed and was right in front of Froz. What difficulties? The Otokage demanded. You see Otokage-sama, Ayato used his kopi against the nine-tailed Jinchuriki who had used the Sharingan against him. As you know, that particular dujutsu, if attempted to be copied by someone who has the kopi, can injure someone mentally or even tear their own mind apart. Ayato accidentally copied the dujutsu. Though he doesn't have that dujutsu, he is hurt because of it. I don't think he can carry out the plan until another 30 minutes. Froz replied as he explained the situation to the Otokage. Naruto was to fight this Ayato as planned between the Hokage and Otokage, but it was the Otokage's suggestion originally. Then we have him using the kopi against Naruto and now they're trying to take him away. This must be a part of their plan. Kakashi thought to himself. You idiot. How dare you use that dujutsu now? Of all times you were meant to weaken the nine-tailed Jinchuriki with the chakra you have. Instead you allowed those emotions to get in your way for the second time. The Otokage said. Listen Froz, I need you to take the nine-tailed Jinchuriki and Ayato out of the Leaf Village and to the outskirts. Meanwhile, both me and Sensei along with our organization guests will take things from here. The Otokage said. And why would we allow you to do that? Kakashi said. Poof. Immediately around Ayato, Froz, the Otokage, and Naruto came exploding 6 mini clouds of smoke revealing 6 tall figures surrounding them. Go nuts. The Otokage said, as the 6 figures covered by shadow and smoke nodded, attacking all the shinobi including Kakashi, Asuma, Guy and Kurenai. The 4 Junin elite blocked the kunai attacks with their own kunai, but the other shinobi weren't as lucky. Once the crowd saw the attack and felt explosions all around the village, they all panicked and ran for the nearest exits with Konoha shinobi guiding them away. Ah! The Otokage turned his head to see Tsunade drop kicking him. He managed to jump back before. Boom! A crater was made by the angered Tsunade. So, you lived. The Otokage said unsurprised Tsunade was alive. And she's not the only one. Jiraiya appeared behind the Otokage holding his shoulder with one of his hands. You know, we both survived battles in the second and third shinobi wars. I can guarantee you were way beyond the point of the average cage level. Jiraiya informed. I didn't think that explosion would kill the two of you. Knowing your history as shinobi and war heroes, I wouldn't expect any less from the legendary Sannin. The Otokage said. But unfortunately, this battle won't be taking place between the three of us specifically. My mentor has some beef he wants to deal with first. The Otokage explained. Your mentor sounds very familiar. He wouldn't be Orochimaru, wouldn't he? Jiraiya said. Swash. The Otokage immediately took 2 scrolls out with seal on them, placing them on both Jiraiya, Tsunade and himself, before doing a series of hand signs and yelling, Transport Jutsu. Poof. Before anyone could react, both the Sannins had disappeared in a puff of smoke. Location. Hokage's tower rooftop. Poof. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade landed on their feet as they realized they were standing upon Konoha's landmark, the Tower of the Hokages. The Hokage Tower. Why would you send us here? Tsunade said in confusion. Kukukukukukukukuku. Tsunade, Jiraiya, it's been a while since we all met here on the tower. Not since Sensei became Hokage. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade turned their heads slowly, unsurprised whose voice this belonged to. Orochimaru. Tsunade said. Been a while, Orochimaru. Jiraiya said with a smirk on his face. Kukukuku. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru said, who had a smirk on his face looking at his former teammates with his arms crossed. It's very nice to see you again. Orochimaru said. In the arena, at the spectators' view where the village people once stood. Sasuke, Hinata, Neji, Shizune along with the Junin had arrived at the chaos that was brought before them. Damn, it already begun. Shizune said. I want every civilian and personnel evacuated immediately excluding the Chunins, Junins and the experienced Genins. I want squads to take in the injured and wounded shinobi and villagers to underground bunkers at the hospital right now. I need to speak to Tsunade-sama. Shizune said while a sound shinobi attempted to strike her with a katana, only to be kicked down by Yugao from the air. Unfortunately, Shizune-san, the Hokage had disappeared along with Jiraiya-sama also, and it was the Otokage that did it using what he referred to as the transport jutsu. Yugao informed. Transport jutsu. I know that jutsu. It's when a number of seals are placed on cargo or people and they are summoned to another location, similar to the summoning jutsu with those of animal contracts. It has its limits, it has only a certain range to travel depending on the size the seals were used for. If he used hand-sized seals then its range would be only less than 10 kilometers so they shouldn't be far. Also the jutsu can only travel between 2 different locations, it cannot travel through 3 and it has to be a location that has a seal on it already. I need you to search for Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama at once. Shizune said. Hi. Yugao bowed before disappearing to fight. Sasuke, Hinata, Neji, I need you 3 too. Watch out. Shizune screamed before a large fireball could hit them. Shizune pushed the 3 genins away before they could get hurt. Unfortunately, the junin that was behind them weren't that lucky, and were burnt alive. No. Sasuke yelled. Why? Neji said. How can anyone do anything this horrible? Hinata said in pure shock. That fireball, why does it feel so familiar? Sasuke said, before a flock of crows went past him. Crows? No. It can't be. Sasuke said as he turned around and looked behind him, only to see the crows circling themselves forming a person. That person soon showed what appeared to be red eyes. Itachi. Sasuke said in confusion. This was just the beginning, the real secret will unfold in the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to see what happens next. See you again in the next journey of Uzumaki Empire 2.0.